What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Let's see if we're live. Let's make sure I don't have any echoes going on, any weird camera stuff going on. Give it a quick second. Live view. Perfect. Perfect. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. What's up, everybody in the chat? Can you hear me all right? Give me a thumbs up or a hello in the chat if you can hear me okay. It's been an interesting week. We're coming hot off the tails of Cincinnati Comic-Con. Most people went to New York Comic-Con. I did not. I ended up down in Cincy for the weekend. Had a fantastic show, which we'll be talking about later. Thank you, Celestial. Appreciate that. How you doing this evening? This evening, we're going to talk first with our guest of the evening is Matt Slay. I met Matt a few years ago. I did a show coming out of out of the COVID season. I think it was 21. Did a show down in Roanoke called Big Lick. To this day, I've yet to hear why it's called Big Lick. I'm sure Matt will have some more info on that, hopefully. Not that he, named it or anything, but great dude, great comic artist. We're going to go over some of his stuff, but let me get him pulled up here as I fumble around with the screens in the background. Everybody, welcome Matt to the stage. Matt, welcome. Welcome
indeed. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you jumping on the show. Do you know why they call it Big Lick?
Yes. If memory serves, I think it was a trapper trader kind of a route. We're going back to frontier days. It had to do with Salt Lick. It was like the Great Salt Lick sort of a thing. It was a salt deposit. There's a big rock quarry. There's a Boxley Block group out there that you're not really mining rock. You're just, the dog's here. Okay. But yeah, it's the Big Lick District is the Big Lick region, which has to do with a salt lick that runs from point A in the Blue Ridge Mountains to point B. It's an Appalachian Trail thing. But yeah, that's what it comes down to. And if you're in the Roanoke area, almost any business is either going to be Big Lick this or Star City that.
Interesting.
You're one of those two things.
I've been doing that show, I think it's since 21. I think it was the first time that coming out of COVID that they had gotten back on schedule with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always have people ask me, what is Big Lick? What is that? And I'm like, I have no idea.
Secret. Don't tell anyone else on the internet.
Tell nobody.
After the internet, don't tell anyone.
Yeah. And I always have that notion of like, I should look into that. So that way I don't feel stupid when people ask me. And here we are. Finally got that.
Explosion, Hunter Trapper Trail, Salt Lick, mining, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Very cool. So we're going to talk a little bit about your art, your background, and all that good stuff. But I had a random thing come up today, and I wanted to lead off with this because I feel like we could talk about this for a minute. I was watching Todd McFarlane was doing an interview.
The Todd father. What's he pontificating on this week?
Well, I guess it's not a new interview. It's been around for a minute, but he's just answering questions from the internet. And someone brought up something to the effect of like, did you have any characters that you made that you brought back once you started doing your own comics? And he brought up that Spawn was actually something he made when he was like 16.
Yeah.
And when he set off to do his own thing in Image, that's when it got resurrected. And it got me thinking about the stuff that I made when I was a kid. And I was wondering, did you have any creations when you were in that age, junior high, high school, that you still either you have resurrected into different ideas or maybe you want to bring back?
That's a yes and no. And I know that sounds like a cop-out answer.
But it is. Next question. So
when I was a kid, I started reading comics 87, but I wasn't all in and like collecting until 88. And that was when Silvestri and Jim Lee and those guys were kind of taking over on X-Men. And they kind of brought me into the comics fold. And I was in love with the artwork more than anything. And I was in love with the characters after the artwork, never really the overall stories. I don't feel like I connected with comics the same way other people did. So when I started drawing and really obsessing over making comics, even as a kid. It was just drawing the characters that I loved, trying to emulate artists that I loved, whose work I loved. So I can't really say that I've resurrected anything other than what I'm pushing now. Now, when I was a kid, Channel 45 or 54, whatever it is, they had two things going on a Saturday that you knew where I was for the next 4 hours. They had Black Belt Theater, which is where they showed all the old Shaw Brothers classics.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if there was a 36th chamber, I made it there. All right, I was every Saturday. We got, and then right after that was Nightmare Theater, and that was every horror movie you could think of.
Yeah,
and sometimes it was edited for content, sometimes not. But what they also showed were old snippets and clips and the occasional segment from Tales from the Crypt.
Oh yeah,
Creep Show 1 and 2. What do they call it? Was it Nightmare Theater? Oh God, one of those other things. Creep Show.
Right. Well, locally we had Son of Ghoul.
Okay.
And he bizarre fella, top hat and the round spectacles.
Almost a Ghoulie kind of a vibe.
Yeah. But they had the holograph eyes on them, right? And then what he would do is he would play old horror movies, but he would dub in sound effects.
Oh no.
Anytime there was a chase scene, like any of the monsters were chasing, their victims, they played it. And forgive me, I don't know the artist.
Feet sound.
Yeah, well, he would do that, but then he'd also play the song. It's like a hoom bow bow, a hoom bow bow. That song,
yeah,
as they're being chased, phenomenal. Nice. So that was our local horror, exposure that we had.
I think, if anything, absorbing all of that as a kid, those were the stories that I was sort of drowning in. So now, as a career artist and now writer, I never thought I'd say that, but apparently I'm a writer now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm drawing on. I'm pulling the old stories that I wanted to tell that I never knew how to tell. And now 22 years in the game, I know how to tell them. So I'm just doing the best I can to do the best I can. Yeah. But I never created a character that was just, this is my guy. I've never had my Spawn. What I had was my ideas for stories that are now coming out in Patchwork Ends. And they're being tweaked and revised and moved around, and it's like a big chessboard in my brain.
Yeah.
And some of those characters are old, and they're being brought back, and some of those characters are brand new. Yeah. I having the time of my life doing it. But I kind of wish I'd had that one character, because to this day at conventions, and I know you've dealt with this, somebody's going to come to your table and say, will you look at my portfolio? And I'm going to say yes.
Right.
Because I remember being young, going to shows, and there were a lot of artists who would say no.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, I know
busy or what have you, yeah.
I was getting my first rejection letters in person when I was 12, all right?
That'll stick.
Yeah.
That'll stick.
Every person who comes to my table and asks me something like that, automatic answer, yes. Wait till I'm not holding a wet brush, but yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll pitch this to you and see what you think. My nightly duty as a kid, we didn't have a dishwasher. I was the nightly dishwasher. And right? Yeah. So it was one of those things where, like, I don't know, creative mind, ADHD, I don't know what you would call it, but in the bottom of the sink in the drain, the brand of the garbage disposal was in the bottom, and it was called the Incinerator. And
I love this so much. It sounds like a Howard the Duck villain.
Well, I didn't go with Incinerator because that obviously is trademarked. I just went with the name Incinerator. And take the idea of a like an Iron Man kind of metal, like armored suit that produces so much energy. The only way that it can run is if it's constantly just blowing off jets of fire and energy everywhere it goes. Simple premise of the guy was he's just always on fire and he's metal and can blow anything up.
Well, you never have to worry about where your light source is coming from. That's why I love painting Ghost Rider. I never get tired of painting Ghost Rider because I know exactly where the light source is coming from.
Yep. Yep. He had a myriad of characters that went with him, but that's another story. So you 22. You said 22 years in business, correct?
On and off, most of
Yeah.
it comics, a lot of it storyboards for commercials. I find myself painting fantasy and sci-fi novels for independent authors and publishing companies and things like that. It's been all over the map, and lately I've been doing marketing and design work for a band. Well, a couple of bands,
That's
and now
anything you can talk about, or
yeah, well,
yeah.
I don't know where it is. I'm now on vinyl. Apparently, one of my paintings is a record now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of a achievement unlocked PlayStation trophy in my life. I've never done vinyl, and I wanted to do that. And there's a sort of an up and coming kind of alt metal band called The Day in Pompeii, and they have been making a lot of waves in very very good ways. And I know one of the guys in there, and it just became one of these. Hey, let's work together. Let's see what we can
Yeah,
do.
very
And
cool.
it worked out. And now I'm on vinyl, and I'm in the process of new logo design. A lot
Yeah,
of things will change logos with the album. So with any art project, it's not about the thing you just did. It's about what's next.
right.
Because you're only as good as the last thing you did. So you need the next thing to be better.
There's always the I don't know. It was like that in sales too when I was in the corporate
The
world. It's like
crippling fear.
what's that?
The crippling fear.
Oh yeah, well yeah, and it's like great job for bringing that in. What else you got? It's just
Yeah.
a constant shovel. I'm going
Yeah.
to share a screen here, so the folks here can see some of your artwork. Um, don't mind me while I just kind of struggle in general. Oh, is it already sharing? Is it already up? Look at that. Ah, here I'm like I need to move stuff around. It's already doing it. So yeah, with the vinyl and whatnot, it's kind of interesting. Side note: a buddy of mine does a videography, or at least he used to, and I guess there's only a couple places left in the world that make vinyl records the traditional way, where they actually stamp the vinyl with a hydraulic press, and it's
Yeah.
somewhere in Cleveland, of all places.
Oh, well, I mean, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, dude.
Yeah, we got it. We're doing it.
Yep.
I guess that's one of those topics. I'm positive you get asked this all the time at shows and conventions. I know I get asked it all the time. Is like, as far as your start goes, as far as breaking into the business, did you go to like a an art school, or did you get right into things like doing freelance work? What did your step into doing art full time look like?
I think I did what I was told to do, and once I had gotten to that place, I did everything wrong.
Perfect.
When I was growing up reading comics, there were a couple things that you could count on in any comic: Marvel, DC. At the time, like Image wasn't around yet, but continuity was a thing. There were still old Kamiko, whatever you want to call it. There were always offshoot publishers that were not Marvel, DC. They did exist, but until Image came along, they weren't really in the forefront. But it didn't matter who the publisher was. There were things you could count on. You're flipping through the books. You're going to get to the middle ad spread or the last 2 pages where the letters to the editor were, or a Stan soapbox.
Right? Oh yeah.
You're going to see ads for before Diamond bought everything. American Entertainment was where you could order rare things, special covers, autographed stuff, and then ads for regional or local publishers. And in those ads buried was a little picture of who you thought was Tarzan, but wasn't. His name was Tor, and that was the sign for the Joe Kubert School.
Ah, yes.
And from the time I could figure out what a comic book was to the time I was able to read it, to the time I was able to pick up a pencil, I knew that like that's what you got to do.
Right.
Well, in your head when you're a kid, you have a grand delusion about how comics work. And that's, well, here's the ad for this school. So obviously every single person that made comics went to this one place.
Right.
even the people who were making comics before the school was
Of
founded,
course.
they all
Yeah.
went there, you know. So obviously, I have to go there. But that's not how life really works.
Of course.
The way it works is you get through high school, you take an SAT, you get into some schools, you don't get into others. And the general consensus, you know, was, well, if you're not going to law school and you're not focusing on medicine, which is where my folks were, then college degree, in case, you know, you can do art anytime. You can
Right.
develop that anytime.
But you better have a plan B.
Gotta have a plan B. So my plan B, this is so brilliant. I went to a different art school.
If this art doesn't work, I'll do a different art.
Yeah, if this art doesn't work out, there's other art.
We're just
Art-
ham-fisting our
art-
way through this art thing, aren't we?
Sure. So I held off on the Kubert School for a minute.
Yeah.
I tried to apply, and I did it all wrong because I thought it was going to be a big secret. You know, like my parents don't want me to do this. No, that wasn't the case. They were happy that I wanted to continue education at all. I just did it wrong. I sent away the thing to the Kubert School that they wanted to see. That send us 22 pieces, and this is back in the day before the internet and all that.
Right, you just scan everything in.
Giant box of stuff.
Oh no!
I sent it to the wrong place. I never got it back. They had no idea who I was, so I ended up going to VCU, VCU in Richmond.
Real quick,
Yeah.
in that box. And by the way, what's up, Danielle? Danielle's in the chat.
What's up?
She was on previous last week.
Stover.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. If you guys have questions in the chat, feel free to ask them. We'll get to them here, kind of as I'm rambling and Matt's doing his thing. We'll pop in some of your guys' questions too.
Absolutely.
Can you remember? I'm just picturing like I'm random business and a box of stuff shows up. And
it's the worst drawings of Sabretooth and Wolverine you've ever seen.
I think if that was me, I'm just picturing myself back in the days with a business I was at. There would inevitably be a package that just sits there for like a month or two or more. And then finally someone would come to me and be like, hey, you want to open this? So you're saying Sabretooth for sure?
I mean,
in there?
I guarantee there was at least a Sabretooth fighting Wolverine piece, because growing up, my first comic that started collecting, I always had comics lying around.
Yeah.
Because there was always like a church yard sale or a rummage sale that was getting rid of old shoe boxes of comics, right?
Right.
But the book that got my attention off the spinner rack at the pharmacy, with standing next to my mom, bright yellow cover with the white logo, it was X-Men 244. I'll never forget it. That's the one that the light switch went on, and suddenly I had the bug. Like, this is my life now. I'm learning to read doing this. This is life for me now. And it was X-Men 244. So always as a kid, and every time that I thought I could get away with it with portfolios, I was cramming it full of X-Men stuff. Anything X-Men. Yeah. There was nothing else. But yeah, I ended up going to VCU, and I did terrible. I did exactly what you would have expected. I did great with the art classes, but anything strictly academic,
right?
Either I didn't go or I didn't care, because I treated my first year at VCU, I was there for 2 years. I treated those years like a proving ground. My goal was still just go to Kubert.
Right.
So everything that I did there was geared towards make the comics work, make this life work. Yeah. But that's VCU. Now, I'm going to preface this because VCU has a phenomenal sequential art program right now with a top-notch faculty, and they know what they're doing, and the student body there has taken it by the reins, and they're turning out kick-ass stuff in the comics realm. I've gone to a couple of indie shows in Richmond and been in love with it every time. I'm here to tell you, when I was not so gray and a student there, that program didn't even exist. And if you want to have your heart broken, watch a little film called Art School Confidential, and see what that kid goes through at art school. All the teachers were comics. No, that's not art. You're wasting your life. Here, paint a green triangle for the rest of your life.
Well,
draw this road cone.
Yeah, right. Bowl of fruit kind of stuff. I think
real snobby.
Well, I think there's the opposite connotation now. Like, what's the reaction people get today when you tell them that you do comics? Like just random people that are meeting you for the first time.
Well, movies made a lot of that stuff a lot more acceptable.
Yeah.
And before 2008, either you kept it quiet or everybody would roll their eyes. But coming up college, the academic world was real snobby towards it. We had to wait until the Iron Man movie blew the lid off of everything.
Right.
And then, floodgates, we know what happened after that.
Yeah. Which is interesting because prior to 2008, I know with like Image blowing up with the way that they were treating Liefeld and all those guys, like they were rock stars. It's interesting to hear that perspective that there was still a bit of contempt there and snobbery, if you will.
There's a reality, and I managed to have this conversation with one of my old professors from VCU, and I'm going to come around to that because there's a little caveat to this. That conversation, I'm about to come back to it. After VCU, I went to the Cuba School, did 2 years there, and then I ended up going to Radford University. Radford was phenomenal. That's where I met ZL Fong, who got me into watercolor and set me on a whole nother path. So the comic books was always there. But even at the time at Radford, they had a whole faculty that was just, oh, comics, that's really cool. Do it this way. We are gonna let you do that. We want you to pursue that, but we want to see you doing it in a different way. So it was very supportive and amazing. Fast forward to the conversation with the old VCU professor, who is, I don't know, retired, dead, gone, who cares? Kind of a bastard anyway. But it was that thing of like, why don't you like it? Like, why do you hate this so much? I know why. Because my work is reaching people because of my work. We're not just going to paint the thing and hang it in a studio somewhere and hope someone sees it. No.
Right.
We're telling stories and we can put it online. We can put it in a book. We can sell it at a show. I can ship it to a distributor to send it to comic shops. A comic shop can call me directly and say, hey, I want 10 copies just to see if it works. No problem. Here you go. You're still painting the same garbage you've been painting for 40 years. And the best you can do is associate professor, because there's no doctorate for studio art. There isn't. So I'm going to call it like it is. You're jealous of us. Ooh. We figured out how to make our art work for us, put a roof over our heads, put gas in the car, and food on the table. We're not chasing tenure.
If this professor is in the chat and wants to have a back and forth with Matt, I would love that. Would be an awesome conversation. Let's go.
I've had this conversation many times.
Yeah.
And if like, this is why I say VCU has come a 180, because when I've been there recently, it's phenomenal. I wish I was 25, 30 years younger and going there now. But the way it was in the mid to late 90s, no, that's why I left. I used it as a battleground to see if I was good enough to go to Kubert, and eventually I was.
Yeah.
And then I went to Kubert and realized I don't need to be here either.
It's interesting because this is one of the things that we talked about last week was, should you go to art school? Should you not go to art school? And either way, I feel like you're going to learn some lessons the hard way. I feel like when you do it on your own, you learn way more lessons the hard way.
Yeah, but you learn them faster.
Yeah, well,
there's no other way to learn it. Rock bottom is a college education by itself.
Yeah.
And I think that the best education that I've got is the education that I impose on myself. Every time I go to a show, I'm looking for the guy that I kind of aggrandized a little bit of hero worship, and I'm going to bug him.
Yeah.
I don't care what book you worked on or how busy you are. Hey, back in 1974, when you signed on to do this, and then when they sent you style guides, how much of yourself came through in that, and how much did you stick to the style guides? I want to know everything you know. I want to know how, I see we stand on the shoulders of giants in this business. And I'm going to find those guys every chance I get. At the most recent Big Lick show, Kevin Nolan was there.
Oh, yeah.
And, I spent a little time with Kevin.
I don't blame you one bit.
I spent a lot of time. But it's about the quality of the time. I'm not just getting to know, hey, how do you draw that line? Which brush are you using? Don't ever ask that. what makes you create the lines that you're creating? Where are you in the artwork? You're going to learn a lot more about a person, which creates so much more value in learning about the art.
Absolutely. The I've seen this happen a couple times, and I guess this is where my mind is with going through like a traditional education versus kind of like me just ham-fisting my way through teaching myself.
Right.
Is like, I know this has happened multiple times, and let me know if you've seen this in other people's portfolios, but they'll do a like a blue line comic book page where it's the Strathmore 11x17 grid.
Sure.
And they'll go in there and they'll already have writing in their word bubbles. And aside from the word bubbles being generally not the right shape, like the font will be like they're already writing comic book size on an 11x17.
Yeah. No, you need to. So here's where the academic side really helps.
Yeah.
And if you are learning on your own, it's not just about what you're learning, but where you're learning it. And I would strongly recommend Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. Just about anything he writes. That's my library that's my resource library.
Yeah.
That's my how to do this section. This whole room is bookshelves. That section is how to not suck at your job.
Right.
You know, and for if you're writing comic size in the balloons on 11x17, you're wrong because hey, sorry, this is what the Kubert School really taught me is that you're not as good as you think you are.
There is that.
And then I don't mean you, I mean the royal all of us.
Right. Yeah, correct.
And that page at 11x17 with probably a 15x10 image area is going to get shrunk down about 67% to what is comic size. And if you think your lettering was small before,
no. Yep. I had there was one young guy in particular that came to me at a show, and he was showing me, and he had sort of like a Far Side style of comics, and he had
love. There we go.
Yeah, he had a pretty solid style, and I was looking through, and I'm like, I'm gonna break this guy's heart when I tell him that. No, it's fixable, but he wanted a critique, and I told him, I said, dude, all of this is great. This is all great. Most people are doing lettering digitally now, and here's why. Because this is going to be completely illegible. And he sunk, but
behind the line art if you need to.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I was telling him, like, hey, dude, if that's the worst thing you got to fix on this, like, you're actually in really good shape.
Yeah.
So you're going through the process of school. So did you end up graduating through the university there? Or what ended up happening?
Well, I ended up getting technically my first degree. I guess you would call it an associate's degree. I got that from VCU through what they call AFO or Art Foundation, which is like, congratulations, kid, you have a paintbrush now.
Congrats. How much did you spend on that paintbrush?
Yeah, way too much.
Yeah.
Kubert, I left after 2 years because there was just a reality to the situation. I was in love with the school, in love with the program, in love with the faculty, not in love with what was going on around me. I was already 3 years older than everybody else. I'd already been working storyboarding for ads. I was doing ad layouts for magazines and newspapers locally. I even had the audacity, and I've never had a problem with this. If I wasn't happy with one of my teachers, I wasn't just going to like act up in class and be a douche. No, I did my assignments, but after school, I would just walk into Joe's office and sit with him. And it took half my freshman year for him to realize, look, I ain't going away, man. I paid for this.
Right.
You know, this costs money. And, you know, during orientation, Joe gave a whole speech. Your first year, I don't talk to you. I don't teach first year. Don't ask me for this. Don't ask me for that. Well,
wow.
Now the check cleared, homie, and it's after October, so I'm in your office now. and it really was just like a gentleman's conversation of, I came here for an education, and your name is on the door. And he was amazing. This man was an angel. The world of comics, almost in its entirety, wrapped up into one dude. And if I was having a problem with an assignment, he was very clear on this. Don't tell me you're having a hard time. I don't care. Tell me why you're having a hard time. Now I know you're thinking about it. Now we have something to talk about. So he was cool with me coming in maybe like once a week, once every other week to talk about some stuff. But after a year and a half of that, I was just like, I've learned more in the hour after school than I did in the whole day.
Yeah.
The whole day was just doing the work. I'm going to do the work anyway.
Right.
I mean, that was a problem that I had. A lot of the kids around me, I can say kids at the time,
Right.
there was a lot of diva attitude. They've been told their whole life how talented they are, and you could just tell that all
They
their
haven't had reality smack them down yet.
yeah, they've never been told by an editor or a layout editor,
It's garbage.
This is garbage. Why would you hand me this?
I love it, but change everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hated seeing that, and I hated hearing the excuses. I don't know. I was just kind of over that.
No.
I am attracted primarily to hard work. And the teachers who threw that at me got the best out of me. The teachers who didn't, and the students around me who were just in it. We had a guy in our class, all he did was draw like Dragon Ball Z stuff. And we even had teachers tell him flat out, if you keep doing this, you're going to fail. Yeah. Oh, but he knew better because that's the most popular anime in the world and blah, blah, blah. No, he was out by Christmas first year.
Does that sound familiar, Danielle? She brought that up last week that while Dragon Ball and anime in general has had a huge impact on our culture, the
it has, but it won't get you far with drawing.
No, the anatomy is a little different.
It's balloon animals is what they look like.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'm not slamming all anime. My first anime was Ninja Scroll, so it sets a very high bar in my mind.
I'm not familiar with Ninja Scroll. I live under a rock, and even as a kid, like we didn't have cable until later on. My brother was more of the gateway into anime. But of course, once we got cable, I think Toonami was first starting to do, what was it?
Yeah.
It was Dragon Ball, of course, Gundam Wing.
Well, Gundam Wing, and that was before Endless Waltz came out, but they had a lot of stuff. Previous to Toonami, the Sci-Fi Channel would do Saturday Anime, and they had 8-Man, Blue Sub 6. I mean, good stuff that hits real hard.
See, and this is the deficit that I have, is there's so much stuff I did not see during that era that like
I got like just bring it to a show and let you borrow it.
At this point, I've flat out had someone asked me the other day if I'd seen a certain movie or what was my favorite out of a franchise, and I told them I didn't see any of them back in the 80s or 90s. And in the 80s, I was a kid.
What was the franchise?
You guys are gonna hate me. I'm gonna get some hate for this. It was Alien.
I turned the knife.
Alien. I have not seen an entire Alien movie all the way through.
What, like a xenomorph?
Yeah.
I have it. Calm down.
That's AJ in the background, right?
Yes. I have on good authority that you draw a hell of a xenomorph, sir.
Thank you. Well, that's the thing, is there's a lot of stuff I like to draw. I've just consigned myself to this point in my life that I'm not trying to go back and make up for lost time watching stuff, because it's a heap. There's a heap.
You're not losing any time with Alien. If you've seen one, if you've seen 1 and 2, you've kind of seen them all.
I know I've seen part of 1. And when I say part, it's like probably about 3 minutes.
It makes me sad.
Well,
it makes me sad to hear this.
I had it's interesting, like parts of my childhood were sheltered, and then other parts it's like, we've sheltered enough. He can watch Terminator 2.
But you're a grown-ass man and you can watch Alien now.
Oh, what was the movie? It was the first rated R movie that I got to see. I was in probably 2nd or 3rd grade, was Cliffhanger.
That's an obscure one. Nobody ever says that.
Yeah.
In my generation, they say we all say RoboCop at the same time. What was your first rated R movie? RoboCop.
Well, here's the thing: is like we would have the recorded off the TV edited versions. So I had seen RoboCop as a kid, but completely edited. Like Ghostbusters, I thought the whole thing about Dan Aykroyd having relations with a ghost was a joke, because we had the edited version. It was recorded off TV, so that whole section's just cut out.
There's a callback to it in the second movie where after the toaster dances to Jackie Wilson, I think it's Jackie Wilson. You're not sleeping with it, are you, Egon? Oh, it's always the quiet ones.
See, so like I probably never saw that either, and if I did see it later on in life, I probably never made the connection. No pun intended.
You're killing me, Smalls.
I'm telling you, man. Now don't get me wrong. Like, I have made up for lost time in a lot of ways, you know. But when it comes to movies and especially anime, I swear to God, anytime anime comes up, there's always someone that's like, "Well, you got to see this or you got to see that." My brother's 300 some odd episodes.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I draw the line with that conversation. Was like, if it's a movie, cool, I'll check it out. If it's 18 seasons of a show, no, don't even bother, because I'm not.
Yeah. So we got some Ninja Scroll fans in the chat. What was the one that came up the other week? Was it One Piece that literally has like 1,000 some odd episodes or something silly?
Yeah, I'm not dealing with that.
Dude. No. So that's I came to that hard realization. It was actually this weekend. It was my brother. He's like, "Hey, you got to see Alien," because he was the one that called me out on it. I'm like, dude, no. If I see it, I'll see it, but I'm not going out of my way to watch it. It's just, I haven't seen. Here's the other one. I'm gonna get some crap for this. I have seen part of one of the John Wick movies. Couldn't tell you which one.
You know what? You get a pass for that. We're gonna call that recent development. Alien is foundational. But John Wick, super cool, really neat story. 1 through 4 is all you need. We don't need any more. They've told the whole story, 1 through 4. We're good.
Well, I think for me, like as a kid, especially going down the toy aisle, I remember seeing all these toys for movies that I did not see or wasn't allowed to see, or we just never saw it. And thinking that they were really cool, but I would like incorporate elements and designs into what I was doing. So like Xenomorphs, Geiger.
Yeah, that's H.R. Giger.
Yeah, I've heard it both ways. I've heard Giger more recently than Geiger. Like I just loved how detailed that guy got with his work. It was insane.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely insane.
I went through this weird phase where I was collecting mouse pads with his paintings on them.
Like multiple mouse pads?
I don't know what it was. I've never used a mouse pad because I always had like a digital,
right, like a little track, whatever.
But when I was starting at VCU, the bookstore, there was like an art supply store. Oh boy, you would think I would know the name because I had like a tab. But yeah, they sold like custom mouse pads. They would just print out mouse pads, and every time they would have a Giger painting on a mouse pad, I just wanted it.
So what would you do with these?
Stack them up, put them in the drawer, forget they were there, and leave them there after the second semester because I just forgot to pack them.
That's how most art collection goes.
Yeah, somebody got a dope ass collection of mouse pads the following semester.
Oh man, yeah, I actually need a new one. My station here with the computer, I also have my drawing table, so I can. The intent was that I could do live streams when I draw, but I find that I can't do both very well.
I've done it, but I need somebody reading the chat to keep me posted because I can talk and draw, but draw and read, that's no.
It's a bit much. It's a bit much. Well, I ended up spilling a whole bottle of P.H. Martin's Black Star onto my mouse pad.
That reminds me. I saw you at Baltimore.
Oh yes. I
got your paint. I'm gonna bring it to you. Okay. Almost a full tube is right here.
So Matt comes up to me. It was Friday. And he's like deadly serious, like, Steve, I need your help. If you got it, is there any chance you got black water paint or watercolor paint? And I swear to you, I do not use black watercolor paint, but I have it. I have it in a little kit. And is that literally the tube that you use? Is that the brand?
This is it. This is the Winsor Newton Cotman. This is what I use because when I'm traveling, I'm not going to get artist grade stuff to travel to conventions, but when I do commission work like that at a show,
Yeah.
I use, it's not it's not artist grade, but it is professional grade. You've got three ways to go: artist grade, professional grade, student grade. Student grade is kind of like chalk in Vaseline. You're gonna ignore that. Let it go.
Yeah.
But this is great for commission work at shows because I'm able to bust them out at a reasonable pace. And this blends really, really well, fading from black to white. And if I go over it with ink for a wash, it just blends right in. I love this stuff.
I use it more for kind of like you have with the Phoenix here, Jean Grey, for like background, like washes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I want to play around more with and get more confident with using it for skin tones and costumes. Just feel like it'd be more efficient with it than what I'm currently doing.
If you're looking for skin tone and costumes and shading and things like that, one of the old adages that the old heads will tell you is never use black, it flattens everything out. In those terms, yes, I'm inclined to agree. But if you mix a dark enough blue with Payne's gray is a bluish tint over a cool gray tone. So that works really, really well as a shadow for shading over skin if you're using, stronger colors and things like that. I only go in with black if I intentionally want a solid flat black area.
Yeah.
Because then yes, it can flatten
dominate
a little bit.
Yeah.
And it dominates a piece. Sometimes I want that. She's in space right now. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So chat, Matt comes up to me and I get him this tube and he promises me, he swears up and down, probably more than he needed to, that he guaranteed that he would bring it back to me. And I assured you, right? I said, hey, Matt, I don't use that. I have it.
Yeah.
And he's literally the first person to crack that thing open. I think I saw you maybe one other time that weekend because you were pretty busy. You're a busy bee that weekend.
I was slammed, so this never happens. But the kind of a line at the table, which is weird because who am I?
You're Matt Slay.
Let's stop.
Which is a great last name, by the way.
Oh, a lot of people who walk by the table think it's fake.
Yeah, yeah. I could pontificate on a couple things here, but the reason I bring this all up is out of nowhere, I get a phone call from Matt, or maybe it's a text, or both, and he's like, "Bro, I completely forgot. I still have your paint." And I'm like, "Dude, it ain't a thing, man. It's all good."
I felt so bad. So Baltimore is one of my favorite shows on the planet. I love that show, and every year, setup and teardown are pretty uneventful, painless, simple procedures that go very, very smoothly. But I think there was something else going on in that part of the convention center later that night, because when they came through, it's always like, all right, the show is over. There's like an hour of teardown time, but I think you only get like 30 minutes before they have to get all the cars out of the loading docks or whatever.
Yeah.
They came through, and it was conventional people, not Comic-Con people, but like convention security, like the people in the building. Yeah. They're like, all right, everyone out. What do you mean everyone out? They're everyone out. Like everyone has to. The show is over. You're gone now. So our whole like block was just like shit. Tear down now. Huh. so I apologize, but I was not thinking about the paint. I was just thinking about how do we get out of here.
I would have to imagine that show more than some of these other shows because Baltimore puts such an emphasis on getting industry folk in there.
Yeah.
They probably have a lot of people lingering around just talking, especially folks that don't have vendor badges or guest badges, that they're just like, okay, show's over, guys. Let's go.
Yeah.
But Mike in the chat says that he had a great time at Baltimore. Glad to hear it. And he's also asking, as far as your experience with watercolor, he says, what would you recommend for someone starting out with watercolor painting?
I would say, and people think I'm joking when I say this, find the cheapest garbage you can find.
That's how I do everything in my life.
Well, you got me on the show.
Hey,
No, for watercolor, find the cheap little cakey bits where there's like 10 colors in a tray and you just flip it open. Don't spend a ton of money on brushes. First, experiment with how the color is going to go down on the page. How much do you want to charge your brush? How much water do you really want to use? Do you want a stronger pigment? Like, really mess with it. Make a lot of mistakes. Go into practice excited about screwing it up. Failure in comics is the best thing ever, because that is when you're going to learn the most in the shortest amount of time, is when you have found out on your own just how awful you've screwed up.
That is an element, yeah.
I've been doing it for 22 years.
Yeah.
But, you know, make a mistake. Don't spend a ton of money on it yet. Now, when you get to a point where you look at something the next day or a week later and you don't despise it and you think, I kind of hit with that one, now you're onto something. Now you've kind of reached that next step, that rung on the ladder. But don't sink tons of money into supplies until you know exactly what it is you want to achieve with them. In the meantime, it's all practice. And that's such a great time, because when you're in that mode, that purely learning mode, especially with watercolor, you can do whatever you want. I would also recommend not looking entirely at watercolor painters for comics. I think you're going to get a lot of meaningful knowledge by looking at sumi painters, a lot of Japanese sumi brush, sumi style, like rice paper and ink painters. Look up a lot of different watercolor people outside of comics and see how they're getting the results that they're getting. Because I've seen a lot of people look at my work, and there are people who buy from me every year saying, I love this effect. Well, I didn't learn that in watercolor. I don't like using oils and acrylics, but I can get an acrylic finish in watercolor by mixing in graphic white with it, and it becomes opaque. And people say, why not use gouache? Because it doesn't get the effect that I want. Oh. Experiment with this stuff, but don't go broke thinking that if I buy a better brush, then I'll be a better painter. No.
Not how that works. Some things are worth the investment, but yeah. I think to your point,
know what you're going to do with it first.
Yeah. What is your intent? What are you expecting to get out of it? And what have you learned before you even got into it? I mean, now with YouTube, there's so much you can pick up before you even pick up the brush.
I learned how to tile the backsplash in my kitchen on a YouTube video. I did it 15 years ago, and it hasn't had a problem since. So thank God for YouTube videos.
There you go. I learned how to ride a motorcycle by watching YouTube.
There you go.
I had never been on one. I'd been on a dirt bike once, but never out of first gear. Went and bought a motorcycle with a learner's permit that I just got from the DMV or whatever. And,
awesome. Just right into it.
I literally bought a used Harley Davidson. Had no idea how to ride it other than YouTube, and rode it back from Cuyahoga Falls to Akron. It's about 15-minute drive onto the highway in the rain back home. The whole time just thinking, don't die. Just don't die.
That's a trial by fire.
Yeah, remember your training, Luke. Like it was a little scary, man. But you can learn a lot.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that would be useful if you haven't gotten into it is a little bit of color theory. And you don't have to go super deep with it. Just understanding, if you're going to have a light source, very warm light source, that having a cooler complementary shadow can make a big difference. That gives you a little bit of direction once you're starting to lay down your color. But you can do, like Matt said, you can do whatever you want. That's the learning.
Yeah. I mean, color theory is important. I mean, you're going to need a color wheel, learn the basics. What's primary, what's secondary, what's tertiary, what's analogous. That's a big word. That just means 5 conjoined colors in any direction on the color wheel, different than monochromatic. It's interesting that you mentioned color theory, because I dedicated way too much time and energy to color theory, but I also feel like my stuff. See, I like a muddy, mold down kind of broken emulsion kind of look with my stuff.
Yeah.
Even something that's shiny, I like the idea that it's muddy and dirty somehow.
Yeah.
We can talk about conditions of the human spirit later, but I
Where's
like
that come from, Matt?
right.
Where were you as the artist making that line? Yeah.
I went somewhere wonderful.
Mm.
But I've had plenty of other artists that I really look up to and appreciate and respect say, you shouldn't do this because the colors don't pop as much. And I don't have the heart to tell them, I don't care about the colors pop. I don't want the colors to pop.
Right.
I don't see life in all the bright, shiny rainbow. Like, this isn't, not everything is perfect and happy and shiny all the time. I
Right.
don't see life that way. I see life for exactly as it is. So I would also say, then this is what made it interesting. It was 2 years ago at Baltimore. My table was across from or close to Brian Stelfreeze. And if you've never seen him paint watercolor, then you've never seen someone paint ever. Go to Brian's table when he's working on a commission and just watch. Don't engage, just watch. Pay attention to what he does. That's your education. He is Brian Stelfreeze for a reason. But I have the audacity of a frustrated rhino, and I just said, how do you apply color theory? How do you know when your colors are too intense and when they're not? Like, because he was working bright on bright and warm on warm. He was doing a commission of Tigra. So you're looking at a lot of yellows and oranges and reds, but if you know his work and his palette, he'll offset that with purples and blues. So he's just pulling it all in, and it looks as natural as can be. Gorgeous. And he said, there's no such thing as color theory. Whoa. Wait, what do you mean by that? And immediately I had to kind of stop and think, here's a guy who is a perfect example of who has mastered everything so thoroughly. Remember when Yoda said you must unlearn what you have learned?
Yeah.
And I think that was Brian's moment of like, you got to start unlearning some of this stuff and just doing what needs to be done. But in order to get to that point, you have to have the foundation. So study color theory, but don't rely to you. You're not a slave to any system.
Right.
Learn it, use it, but you're not a slave to it.
That's a really good point. I was talking. I've had this conversation with multiple people at shows. That they have fun drawing, but they haven't learned construction drawing. They haven't learned perspective, anatomy, and I'm like, there is a science to what we do. I know we call it art, but there is a science.
Yeah,
and you will have
be an architect.
Yeah, you'll have way more fun doing the art part if you understand the science. Think about Karate Kid, right? He's out there, wax on, wax off. He's like, Miyagi, why am I doing this? And then it all clicks.
Yeah.
And then you can flow with it. So yeah, color theory for me, it's like I will definitely use it from time to, well, I'll say with most of the time when I'm coloring, but ultimately it's what does this picture need to pop?
Right.
Yeah. Mike Hall says that he has a great painting format of Bane and Nemesis Enforcer.
Oh yeah. Okay, so that was, I remember that. Nemesis Enforcer is just one of my favorite villains, period. And I am one of the diehard lifelong G.I. Joe fans.
Yeah.
And I know for that group, for my generation, for Gen X who grew up watching that stuff.
I have to see a picture of this. Nemesis Enforcer.
There are two schools. You either love the comics or you love the cartoons, especially after the 1987 animated movie came out. And that movie was very, very divisive among fans because it rewrote the origin of everything. I didn't mind it because I was just all about these character designs. And here was this mutant monster. He was Sabretooth and Archangel combined. I love painting him. And I almost never, ever, ever get asked to do that stuff. But
I
I
didn't know who it was. When he said Nemesis, I was thinking Resident Evil.
oh okay
But I like the elbow spikes. It's pretty rad. I
yeah.
like it.
No, he was cool. He gave Sergeant Slaughter a run for his money in that movie.
I'm like having a little bit of nostalgia here because I remember seeing some of this.
Oh yeah.
Um,
It's weird. So the tentacles, you got the tentacle thing going with that one? Go
oh
back
yeah.
up. Yeah, right there. Never in the movie. Never happened, but it's an accessory, damn it.
That was the fun thing about the toys. It's like just going back. What was it? The toys that made us. Listening to those guys
Great
on
show. Yeah,
Netflix.
great show. That
Yeah,
Secret Galaxy is another one. If you don't know Secret Galaxy, that channel, oof. Oh, that's a good one.
I have not seen that. I'll have to check that out.
It's a YouTube channel and it
Oh
is
wait, I
wonderful.
think I have seen that. This guy really goes in depth on the like the hardcore backstories to all this stuff.
Oh yeah, Dan Larson. He's a research nut. I love him.
Yes, I have seen that. Yeah, GI Joe, man. They kind of went places, didn't they?
Yeah, much to Larry's dismay, I don't think he's ever been happy with some of these creative decisions. But I have love for all of it because I was exactly the demographic, and they
Yeah.
got me. Boy, did they get me! Because to this day, when Mike said Nemesis Enforcer, yeah, yes.
It's funny too because like my oldest brother's 4 years older than me, and he had the GI Joes that were built like Vietnam era GI Joes. Like they're wearing olive drab. They have real modeled guns.
Were those the like the big ones? The
No, they were still, was it 3 3/4 or whatever it is?
quarter inch. Okay, so that would have been
Yeah,
just wave one. So you're talking about,
yeah,
you know,
like Beachhead and all them when they're actually wearing
base
like,
ones, yeah.
yeah. When I got in, when I was like, I don't know, we would get chore money from time to time and that sort of thing. I was buying GI Joes that had neon rocket launchers on helmets.
Oh, the Ninja Squad or whatever.
Yeah, the Ninja
Oh,
Squad.
no, that was the DEF and
Yeah.
the Eco Warriors. And
Yep.
now this is what you need. I keep this up here out of reach of the dog. Hold on a second.
Okay.
This is my Snake Eyes from when I was a little kid. This is my series 2 with the wrist paint intact. That's my street cred right there. I was there, y'all, and I kept it.
Talk about a badass combo, having a ninja with Uzis, just ready to go.
I mean, if you're gonna be a ninja, let's face it, you gotta have an Uzi and a wolf.
Oh yeah, the wolf too. That's right.
Oh, he's up here. That's Timber. Yeah, I don't go anywhere without him.
Oh yeah. Yeah, GI Joe was the big one. GI Joe and of course the Turtles. Good old Turtles.
Turtles that's gonna have a permanent place in my heart forever. That was my first like real comic cover work, was Turtles.
So how'd you get plugged into that? Were you working through the proper channels to get in and like submitting stuff, or did you get picked up from a show, or how'd that work out?
Yeah, no, it was a gift. It was straight up a gift. I was the young buck doing shows wherever I thought I could do a show and not make too much of a fool of myself. And that's that weird part of the career where it's like, where's all your comic stuff? You got a whole table full of comic stuff. Where your comics on? I've been storyboarding. I've been doing magazines and layouts, and I'm sorry, but I really love this. And the guy who owned the show, VACon, Virginia Comic Con, Brett Carreras, really liked what I was doing. And Brett, first and foremost, is just a fan of the craft of comics. He is a big time, lifelong career nerd, and he loves a come up. Yeah. He loves it when the thing that's down here, I'm going to start that sentence over. Brett sees value in things way before anyone seems to understand why. Give it a few years. Turns out Brett was right. For better or worse, he's almost never wrong. It's like his mutant power. He knows exactly what he's doing and what he's talking about. It's just at the wrong time.
Mm.
And
That's like a monkey's paw wish.
yeah, but
Yeah.
the guy's brilliant, and he's a good friend and a good guy.
Yeah.
And he just said, "Hey, you should come to one of my shows." Okay, what do I do? You know, I am new, and after a few years, I think he saw what a lot of other promoters were seeing was, okay, you're not famous. Marvel isn't picking you up. DC's not picking you up, but you never stop working. You've always got 10 projects on your plate, and you've never been late to anything in your life.
No.
So let's put you to work. And Brett said, "Want to do a variant cover for Ninja Turtles?" Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the weirdo who was like so far into Ninja Turtles that PandaCon and Rayfile were my favorites. Like, I'm deep into the turtle stuff. Because my lineage with 80s stuff is He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles stuck, and I still love it. So I did that, and I ended up doing a variant cover for the Leonardo micro series. He worked all that out and said, "I need it by this day." Oh God, that's like less than a week or something.
Of course, that's usually how that goes, right?
Yeah, but what it also means is I painted out of excitement and not out of reasonable, I did not take a reasonable approach to this.
No.
I did what I thought everybody wanted. I didn't do what was really going to stand. I did what I thought was cool, and I was just excited and just throw it down.
Yeah.
So I look at it now. I'm very happy that I did it, but I really wish I could have done it a different way because I know more than I knew then.
Right.
Welcome to how life works, right?
Especially with art.
Yeah.
I mean, there are landmarks of what we've done all across the country, and God bless the folks that were buying stuff from us 10 years ago.
I know, right? I consider myself very, very, very lucky.
Yeah.
To have met the people that I met when I met them. And so this will get a little morbid, but it'll be a good segue into horror.
Yeah.
So the Ninja Turtle cover happened, and then another one happened, and then another one happened. But they were always variant covers. And I loved each one, and I started to get the gist of how to slow down, think about what you're doing. You know how to do this, so take the time to do it better. And it worked out, but it also went away. You're a variant cover guy. Nobody's contracted you to anything. So once they're done with that book, they're done with you. Now you're in comics. Get another job now.
Right.
So that's the game. Everything you do is auditioning for your next gig. That's all it is.
Absolutely.
And I kind of rode that wave as long as I could. And then my attitude towards the game changed entirely. I found myself making more friends with people twice my age in the business. I never really had like contemporaries in a creative group to pal around with. No. I found myself sitting at the table with, like I said, on the shoulders of giants. I put myself arrogantly at that table because I always knew that's where I'm going to learn the most in the shortest amount of time.
Right.
And I had dedicated those years strictly to learning this business and getting better at art and making friends with a lot of Silver Age guys, some Bronze Age guys. And then they kind of started dying. It's not anybody's fault.
Right.
You get a pass when you're 80 and 90. That's how it is. But that's when I realized, like, my friends are all disappearing. I need to change my approach. So now I've dedicated myself to meeting as many people as possible to have the widest learning basis possible so that I can have a creator group to move forward with.
Right. Makes sense.
Work ends.
Yeah. So that was it 2 years ago you had brought up Patchwork, or was it a year ago? I feel like it was 2.
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I was already in production for the first one. The first one came out. Sold out right away, had to go back to print almost immediately. And then
which is amazing. That's
really weird because, again, who am I? Why do people love this much? It's just, but what I've been hearing is that horror comics were kind of having a resurgence.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'm not any good at this. but boy, do I love it.
I feel like horror in general is having a resurgence.
I hope so. Terrifier 3 made me happy.
I haven't seen it. Surprise.
Well, if you haven't seen Alien,
It's, I actually the conversation that was prompted was my brother had asked me how much of the stuff that's on my wall, my print wall. I'm going to show my hand here a little bit. So for those of you watching, you're going to sneak peek into my existence. He said, how much of the stuff that you draw or that's on your print wall have you not seen? Like the movies, the core movies, that sort of thing. I said,
yeah,
a good chunk. I would say out of the horror stuff, I've only seen a couple movies all the way through. I enjoy drawing it. In fact, I like making my own stories. But when it comes to seeing this stuff, you got to keep in mind, by the time I was in a position where I could choose what I want to watch, a lot of these franchises have put out so many movies, they've run themselves into the ground. So yeah, I'm a little behind on horror stuff in particular.
The Halloween franchise, you just need to see 1 through 4.
Yeah.
To get the whole story.
It's not going to happen. This is not going to happen. But I guess the point to make is that I think because so many franchises have come and gone and rebooted again, I think there's a hunger for this kind of material, dark material, stuff that spooks you a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying earlier that some of this was kind of carryover from stories or ideas you had earlier in life. How'd you land on the 4 stories that went into Patchwork?
So every volume of Patchwork kind of carries a specific theme, and that's going to be indicated on the cover. But I had 4 stories that were primarily moral conundrums. They were questions of morality. See, I don't think horror is necessarily the thing that jumps out and says boo and makes you It's not always a giant spider in your sleep.
No.
I think horror, the way I define it, is anything that is going to challenge your ideas of what is safe or comfortable. There are plenty of things that will make you very uncomfortable, that are horrifying, that are not a jump scare or even a bloody slasher situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of that just comes down to the choices that you made. So everything in volume 1 is kind of a morality tale, but each one is allegorical to something that I dealt with. You know, I did not name people after people that I know, and I don't do caricature of people I know. That's a legal nightmare unto itself.
Yes.
Now, street names, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Because I can say I lived on a street. There's and the logo itself, the Patchwork Ends, the shape of those signs. If you go through the historical district, the whole town is historical now. St. Michael's, Maryland, the old street signs were black wrought iron with black embossed lettering. All I did was flip them upside down. But yeah, those are the old street signs from the town I was born in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot more personal stuff in volume 2. There's a lot more personal stuff in volume 2.
Yeah. We, while you're on the note of the street signs, it just reminded me, we had this fictional name that we used quite a bit back in high school when we would do like art projects or just needed a made up name. And the intersection at my house, my one buddy thought it was like the perfect movie name. It was the intersection of Curtis and Fenton. So we always use the name Curtis Fenton for, it's a pretty cool, it's like a James Bond kind of sounding Curtis Fenton. Well, then we found out that later on, that was the meme. It's like the intersection where you live is like your porn star name. So there's that too.
No, the one that I heard is that your porn star name was like your pet's name plus the street you grew up on.
Of course.
We had 2 basset hounds named Rhett and Scarlet because my dad loved that movie.
Yeah.
I was born on where we lived in St. Michael's was East Chestnut Street.
Oh,
So my
geez.
porn star name was Red Chestnut.
That's a pretty exciting name.
It's okay. Calm down, chat. There's room for everyone. It's fine.
If anyone wants to put their name in the chat, that would be
band.
So what is your I guess as far as this book goes, what is your goal? Like what are you trying to challenge people the most with?
Okay. There are 2 moments in volume 1 that seem to get me a fair amount of backlash. One, because of headlines and current events. You've read it, so you know what I'm talking about.
Right. Yes. Yep.
The other is something that happens in story number 4, because boy, do people love their pets. You know what I'm talking about.
There's a certain, was it the microwave or the oven?
It's the oven.
Spoiler alert, folks.
Yeah. But, you know, and I explained to you my reasoning for that, why it won't work. Right. I think what I'm trying to get across to people is 2 things. One, I think you need to be challenged. And I think you need to be challenged by art and by writing, because that is a controlled environment.
Yes.
I think you need to confront on your own terms the thing that horrifies you or terrifies you or upsets you or angers you. You need that in your life, because that is the only way you're going to stimulate the critical thinking parts of your brain and saying, is this really dangerous or am I just overreacting?
Right.
I choose comics for this because at any time you can read what I've done. You can look at it and go, oh, clutch the pearls, I'm weak. Feel free to close it.
Right.
Because the other thing, point number 2, my job is not to manage your emotions. No one in comics is responsible for managing your emotions.
Right.
We're going to do what we do because we're driven to do it. I'm doing this because with these 3 volumes, there are aspects of myself that I'm not happy with. There are things about me that I don't like, and I want to work through them and work around them and work with them. That's why this tattoo is what it is. If you ever see me at a show, ask me about it. It has meaning. I want to take all the things that I don't like, that do bother me, that upset me. I want to reverse engineer them, kind of deconstruct them, and then work them out on a page. Put them on a page, paint, draw, ink, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And use that to get it out. But in the process of doing that, I'm going to be telling stories that upset people. Maybe you need to work through it. Maybe you need to read Patchwork Ends. Maybe it might be good for you. Maybe volume 1 isn't the thing. Maybe volume 2 is the thing. And that's okay, because all 4 stories in each volume are self-contained. I'm not writing sequels. I'm not going to hold you hostage to the next one. I see that happening a lot in comics. Remember, I'm going to be this old guy now. Notice the gray beard. Remember when we were younger and there was a story arc and at most it was 6 issues?
Right.
Now it's a year and a half and you need to be reading 5 titles to get it all. And you're in for 40 floppies if you want to get the whole thing, and only to find out next year that was all horse crap. They turns out this other thing happened and now that doesn't matter anymore.
Yep.
I'm not into that. I think in film, and television, I started out in storyboards. I'm always going to be storyboarding. I think first, second, third act. Right. I want an intro. I want conflict. I want resolution.
Right.
So that's how I write, because let's be honest, I'm not a good enough writer to get away from that.
See, I think for me, mainly because my first big foray into public writing or public entertainment was the podcast I was doing. It was D&D, so it's like every episode has to have cliffhanger.
Right.
So I would still set it up with sort of that three act play of it was a little bit different. It was more or less resolve what happened last time, plus segue into the next thing, meat of that story, big action that ends in cliffhanger. But I think as long as you're thinking in 3 parts, whatever those 3 parts are, it still needs to be 3 acts, regardless.
Yeah. A 3-act structure is hard to argue with. And as long as your ending is satisfying, then maybe some of the things you stumbled on in Act 1 and 2 can be forgiven.
Yeah.
But you've got to have an ending that hits. So when I'm writing a story, of which I've written 13 now, I'm thinking, what would blow my mind if I were walking out of a theater? What's an ending that I would still be talking about in the car ride home?
That would leave you silent for a minute while you're still mulling it over, and then it's
Right.
just like, huh?
Right. So I want an ending like that. So I want to make sure I start with a dope ending,
Yeah.
but you can't start it, you can't end it the way you started it. So I've got to come up with a beginning of how did we get here? And now your second act is let's throw it all in a blender and take this character that we love and put him through hell.
Yeah.
So that the ending is satisfying when there's resolution. And maybe, just maybe, and this is the horror aspect of it, it didn't go the way you wanted it to. They say Hollywood loves a happy ending. That ain't Hollywood. This is a comic, all right? This is a horror comic, and it resembles a little bit more real life.
Yeah.
Real life does not give you happy endings just because you want one.
Especially with horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you something real quick. So you had mentioned how important it was that you kind of challenge your feelings, your emotions, your beliefs, even, and with comics, it being a controlled environment. Do you think that's the natural appeal to things like horror in general, or even like amusement parks? Is that we're challenging that status quo? Do you think that's a natural appeal?
I think that's the natural appeal, but whether or not we are challenging the status quo is up to us. We have now entered a kind of a second golden era of independent comic creator. It's a big sandbox, and it's ours, and we're calling the shots now. The responsibility there isn't to control how other people are going to react to it, because people are going to react and respond however they want.
Right.
The responsibility is, did you make it the best you could each time out?
Absolutely.
That's where we are beholden to ourselves. Like we are responsible for the quality of a product and a reading experience. This is volume 1. I've seen it sell out twice.
That's huge, man.
But what I've also, that's the fun part. That's the surface part where everybody goes, good job, way to go. And I'm not thinking about that at all, because I don't know how to process compliments. Like, I suck at it. I don't know. People say, good job, Matt, we like you. And I'm like, ew, why?
What are you trying to get out of me?
Yeah, no. I remember Jimi Hendrix said, I don't like compliments. I find them distracting. But all I got from volume 1 was, I need to do way better than this. I've got to do better. So with volume 2, I am doing better. I've changed the way that I'm writing certain stories. I'm changing the style of writing to fit the aesthetic of the story. I'm kicking it up to all black and white wash painting, like the cover is. Instead of just going straight line art, I'm doing black and white wash. And I thought, as long as I'm doing that, volume 3 needs to be kicked up a notch. So volume 3 is going to be all in color, but it's all going to be mixed media. So I'm not relying entirely on watercolor. You're going to get a little bit of everything. I found some old Conte crayons in my closet. I'm using those.
Nice.
So
I feel like you did bounce around a bit in one with some of your style. Like some of the line art was a little bit cleaner. Sometimes there's more cross hatching. Sometimes it was just contextual with the story. But it's exciting to hear that you're because I think all artists, especially in the comic book world, you learn so much by doing it. You have in your head what it's supposed to look like. Then you do it and you're like, shit, next time.
Pretty much. And that's what patchwork is for me. Each one of these stories, you're right, the aesthetic is different. There's one story where I'm using like Copics to render out, gradients. I went really rudimentary line art with one of them, and then starting with the cowboy kind of zombie gateway to hell situation. That was a lot more intricate with like certain cross hatching in certain areas. And that was me changing aesthetics with the nature of the story. But that's why I'm doing this. I want every story to look a little different, to feel a little different.
Right.
Because if I had to like confine myself to one way of doing things, I don't know. Maybe you become that iconic guy who had a legendary run on that one character and defined it for a generation. Cool. But did you do anything different?
No.
And did you do anything differently?
Right.
You know, I want to do different stuff. I call myself a comic book artist because I've been doing it for so long, and it's what I went to school for. That's been the dream since I was 8. But I'm turning out designs for bands, commercials, science fiction novels, laying out magazines, TV, film. Like, it doesn't matter. It's all ways of using two-dimensional art, pushing it into as many different art forms as possible, and basically turning literature in. I'm not reinventing the wheel. We're using a visual medium for the benefit of literature, and we're using literature for the benefit of a visual medium.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be stuck doing it the same way forever. And unfortunately, that means I'm going to have to go out on my own and do it. But turns out it was a good idea.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I get asked, I'm sure you get asked all the time, what's your favorite thing to draw? And my answer is something different. Like, I'll get in a phase where I want to draw certain things one way or the other, and I'll go back to the way I used to draw things other times. But I'll never forget, there was a dude who came up to me at Cincinnati Comic-Con 3 years ago, and he's like, "Hey, I need to commission 3 gifts. One was like, I think it was like Wonder Woman. The other one was another superhero. I think it was maybe a Green Lantern or something." And he's like, "And a spooky cat." And I'm like, "Oh," he said spooky cat. And I'm like, "What's spooky cat? Is that like an anime thing?" He's like, No, just like a cat that's spooky." Like,
oh,
okay.
all right.
I put that one off for the last because I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with the spooky? And I'll tell you what, out of those 3 commissions, that was my favorite one. I don't do a lot of cat drawings, period.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the hell out of that. That was a ton of fun. And you know what? I started putting cats in everything. It's like,
you're right. You're right. And I know why you're right. Because not this past year, but the year before, I went to Comics, Cards, and Collectibles in Reisterstown, Maryland for Free Comic Book Day. They invited me out there to come and do a store signing and do sketches for people. It's Free Comic Book Day, so we went and partied. And I don't know what happened that day or how it started, but I was so excited because the Free Comic Book Day crowd is not afraid with their requests. They're not afraid. You get to a big convention and people have an expectation and they want their favorites. So you play the hits. Can you draw me a Daredevil? Yes. Can you draw Thanos? Yes. Can you do Batman? Yes.
Right.
Free Comic Book Day, it's a little different. You know, can you draw me Our Man? Specifically this version of Our Man, you know? Or I got Dog Welder once. If you don't know Dog Welder, Google it. All right. It's pretty self-explanatory. But
Dog Welder.
Oh, you're doing this?
Yeah. What's it from?
Is chat, you're in for a treat.
Dog Welder.
It's exactly what it sounds like.
Is this what we're talking here?
Oh, that's where we're at, baby. All right, let's see. Zoom in on the one where a guy's welding a dog to something. Whichever one that is.
God.
That's him.
He's holding what looks to be maybe a Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah. And y'all thought I was probably kidding with that. Huh?
I was like, it's got to be like an acronym or something.
Nope.
Okay.
He welds dogs to stuff. That's his power.
This is, of all the things that could come up tonight, this is not on the top 5.
That's why you hang out with me. I bring the knowledge, man.
If this were the Family Feud board, I would have thought for sure this was the Red X. Like,
good answer. Good answer.
Let's see. Is Dog Welder on the board? Survey says it's up there.
It's the last one, but it's up there.
Oh my Lord.
But yeah, no, I don't know what happened at the Free Comic Book Day that day, but one person asked me to draw their dog, and then another one said, "Oh, you can do that?" And then it was the dog, and then the cat, and then the other cat, and then draw my kid, and then draw somebody else's kid, and then draw my kid and a character with our dog, and then 10 more dogs. All I did was draw people's family photos at Free Comic Book Day. I was in my own personal hell, but it ended up being one of the most important days of my life, because like that's the hard lesson. You're not always going to get asked to draw the thing that you like. And I find myself writing stories in Patchwork now where a lot of that stuff is relevant, like different animals and like different scenarios. I spent an entire day practicing cat dog skull structures. Is what just happened. And that one day where I kind of bitched about it a little bit. I was just, really? This is what everybody, one guy asked for Venom. One guy wanted Venom. He got the best Venom.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
So that's I've only done a couple of the Free Comic Book Day commissions where it's like the little patch on the comic. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about doing like a full commission? I
just love to work, period.
Yeah.
And whatever people ask me for is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to something like Free Comic Book Day, you have a truncated convention scenario. Right. I'm sticking to 9 by 12, and it's either going to be really good pencils or I might paint something. If they've got the time to hang out, then I've got the time to paint. At a convention like Baltimore, I'm going to do all that plus up to 11 by 17. I do what is needed of me because I'm not afraid of the work. If the work piles up, I'll just stay up all night and do it in the hotel room. But you are going home happy with what you asked for,
right?
Unless you're leaving in 10 minutes, and then I'm going to mail it to you.
Right. I had first time I've had this, I had two guys at Baltimore that had Free Comic Book Day comics that had about the size of a sketch card, a patch that was either completely whited out on the comic or it was kind of made so that the actual cover looked like it was more translucent. So you could do a commission in the corner of the book.
Yeah. People are using that white corner box. See, that you're supposed to have those stamped by the retailer.
No.
That's supposed to be stamped by the retailers because it shows, okay, we did receive this inventory. You received it at the shop. It's like a seal of approval. It's part of that process. But there are more than there are plenty of copies that get out unstamped, which collectors prefer. And a lot of art collectors and fans will use that as a place to remark the cover.
Gotcha.
Which is a neat idea.
Yeah, that's actually it's funny you say that. I just got my proof in earlier this week for Slaughter Dolls 2, and I got to figure out how I'm going to remark this book because this is the best looking book that I've ever gotten printed.
Well, let's see it.
Number one, I have doodled all over the cover because I can't figure out how I'm going to do remarks.
Well, let's take a look.
Nothing's really. So I've got all kinds of doodles on there. So I tried putting down white ink, thinking like maybe I could draw on the white ink. Try putting down some bronze Sharpie. That's the best looking, but it's not great. Yeah. Paint pens, they just go all over the place. And I drew some awesome shades on her with a Sharpie. And that made me laugh. That shows up the best. But this is like by far, this is through Mix'em printing. Book looks great. Like the opacity on the pages is real nice. The only errors that I see are my own, and it really killed me. I have a print there, like a spelling error on the back. I was going through. I'm like, how did I miss it? It's not ancient. It's ancient. Of course, it's backwards. But yeah, this is by far the best looking book. I'm switching to Mix'em.
Right on.
Are they the cheapest? Probably not. But
comics isn't like, comics is like everything else. It's not different. You get what you pay for.
Right. Yeah. The other thing is I'm used to being able, and I think you can still do this with Mix'em, but you got to be like damn sure you got everything lined up just right. Their default way of uploading your material is if you want a 60-page book or a 40-page book, it will show you 40 spots that you upload images to. Now, if you name them correctly, you can just drag and drop them all in and it'll auto-populate.
Yeah.
But you still have to go through and make damn sure that everything is where it needs to go. and that there's nothing. I'll show you the little guidelines that there's nothing that's going to get cropped out. So that was the entirety of the day yesterday, from about 7:30 in the morning to I think I finalized. Now, mind you, fixing that book because I had a couple minor revisions I need to make, like spelling.
Mhm.
And then also all my other books, I am switching to Mix'em, so I had to reformat all of them. The most comic books do 6.625 inches by 10.25.
Yeah.
Mix'em is 6. I think it's like 49 or 249 or something silly. But that little bit, if you don't fix it, you're just gonna have a white strip.
Ah, okay.
So there I was going through about 4 or 5 books worth of material, reformatting everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a long day. But that's
we salute you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. That's cheers. So Patchwork Ends though. So you said you've got 13 stories so far. When is Patchwork 2's not out, is it?
It will be in 2025.
Coming up. First quarter, second quarter.
I want to aim for Halloween just because horror and gimmicks and Halloween all year long, baby. But still, there's something magical about October.
Yeah.
Basically, where I'm at now is all 4 stories for Patchwork 2 are done. They're written.
Nice.
The artwork for one of them is finished. The artwork for the second one is halfway done. And that's just where I'm at on.
Yeah.
Once that's done, I'll get the pages scanned in and I'll send it over to Nick. Nick Wentland has been lettering, doing an awesome job. I love Nick.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And then let's see, Patchwork 3. All 4 stories are written and the layouts are done.
And that'll be, what was that? That'd be 26 then?
Halloween? I would look for it to be 26. But there's the ebb and flow with independent comics is here's the thing that you love, but it makes you zero money until it's out.
Right.
And while you're making zero money, that's the time to also take on like private commission work, covers for other science fiction fantasy novels that I enjoy. You know, that you got to keep the money coming in.
Right.
You know, once you've stockpiled it up for a little while, then you can go back to working on Patchwork full time.
Right.
So I would love it to be 25, 26. The heavy lifting is done. I just have to produce the artwork.
Right. Isn't it weird how that works? It's like the artwork is just process.
You get to a point where it kind of is. Now, volume 3 won't be processed because it's all multimedia. And the stories in volume 3 are painfully, savagely personal.
Yeah.
Volume 3 is where I am taking all of the hardest things I've ever dealt with. And maybe I worked through them, maybe I didn't. But they're they're the worst things about me. So I'm putting them down because I got to get them out.
Yeah.
Now the 13th story plays into the master plan. Once I'm done with volume 1 through 3, I've talked to you about the master plan for Patchwork.
Yeah. I don't know how much you want to spill here on the old internet, but
I'll spill all of it because I think it's important to have fans and readers that can anticipate something that's actually coming.
Well, just to build up a little bit more suspense here for those that are watching. If you have not followed Matt, you're available on Facebook, correct? Are you on any other?
No, I'm hardcore old school comics guy. Yeah. I use pencil and paper and ink and brushes and boards.
Well, I'm saying for social media.
Yeah, but that translates to social media. So I have Facebook and that's it.
Okay. So yeah, guys, his Facebook is in the description. If you want to keep up to date with what Matt's doing, give him a follow over there. Check out what he's doing because this is, looking through the first Patchwork and knowing how Matt's crafting these stories, some of the spoilers he's given me just leading into even the first one. If you're a fan of the genre, you're not going to want to miss what this guy's doing. So feel free. Tell us where this thing's going, man.
Well, I want horror is already a strong community. I've learned that going to comic conventions, science fiction conventions, fantasy conventions, all the things, there's always factions. At horror, when you get to horror, there are no factions. You might like a slasher better than a thriller, but everybody loves everybody. Oh, you love that one? I love that one too.
Yeah.
Everyone is really supportive of just loving horror, period. And I think it's because horror is all genre. We can do anything we want here. There's no one thing that defines horror. So I want to have a community where all of that can happen and where new creators can get the thing that nobody will give them. I want the hardest part of any job, especially in comics, because you mentioned what it's like to break in.
Right.
I think that's the biggest problem. People have this mindset that they have to be either invited or they have to break in. How do I crack this egg? Stop. Leave the egg alone. You don't need it.
No.
Again, Brett Carreras reset my brain entirely when he said, when he got me that first Turtle cover and he released it at a show and he said, dude, you're a Ninja Turtle cover artist. I'm like, well, I'm really not. I did a variant cover and he said, no, you did the cover for a Ninja Turtle book. You're a turtle cover artist.
You're in.
And I was like, holy shit.
Yep.
And then the imposter syndrome set in and it's been that way forever. But with this book, I want young creators to stop worrying about why won't the publisher that I love run the thing that I'm pitching? Okay. Newsflash. You don't really need them.
I like the close-up shot. That was good.
You know, you don't.
Yeah,
really
it's
need
true.
All you need is a place to do it. Patchwork is 4 stories. I want, once my 3 volumes are up, I want to do a collection. I want to do like a nice hardcover kind of treasury edition. I want to do it up and I want to have 2 or 3 bonus stories in there. You know, basically put it all out there. Say, this is what I did. That'll probably end up being a Kickstarter thing. I don't have a lot of experience with that. I just learned how this works, and I needed my wife for that.
Well, so when you get around to Kickstarter, let me know because I've learned quite a bit, and there's people out there charging money for it, which can get you a very professional looking Kickstarter. But I could definitely get you some pointers.
Hey, happy to, because you're involved. You know, I want Patchwork to be a place where we as creators can go. That's why I made the logo a friggin' street sign. I want it to be a fun place. If you want to write. If you want to draw. Do you want to paint? I know a lot of pencilers who are really, really good at penciling, but as soon as they come up with an idea for a story, the editors and the publishers don't want to hear it. You're a great penciler. Why would you want to do that? Because I want to. All right. Well, I say yes. You can't get a job because you have no professional experience. You've never been published, but you've never been published because you can't get the gig. Well, Patchwork Ends is where you go to get the gig and publish because you say so. All right. I want an old school website with forums where we can log in and talk to each other, not a social media platform.
Right.
I want old school conversation where creators are creating, talking about creating. Iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. So I want other people who want to write a story that have experience in this other realm in.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the forums thing because you brought that up, I think the first time to me, maybe at Baltimore, maybe it was at Big Lick. In the back of my mind, I'm like, why not just use Reddit? Well, every time I log into Reddit, I get reminded of why not Reddit. You want something more personal. You want people that actually care and not just the passerby that wants to shitpost all over whatever it is that you're doing.
Patchwork Ends as a website, as a forum site. Once I get through step B, step C, step D, merchandise, things like that, it becomes a place to move merchandise for the Patchwork brand, for creators to create. And I want it to be a platform for creators to jump off on. Hey, I've got a story. Cool. I'll run it in Patchwork. We'll do it. And here's the kicker. You own it. If you wrote a story and you drew it and you did all the artwork and I put it in Patchwork moving forward, that's cool. You still own it. I don't want the rights to your thing because I put it in my book. I don't want to raise your kid. I don't want to manage your drama. I want to put dope horror comics into the world just because. That's it.
So,
not work monetizing everybody else's stuff. That's what the other publishers are doing.
Right. At a certain point, though, especially if you're going to go to Kickstarter or that sort of thing, I feel like you do need to have some sort of editorial review as to what's going into the book, though, right? Like,
oh, sure. And I would function at, I mean, I have my master's degree is in visual spatial relations. So I have a master's in education anyway. My function would be, if you want help with something that you're doing, I'm here to coach. I won't tell you how to do it. I'll tell you how it has worked in the past. I won't tell you what to do. Right. But if there's something you're trying to achieve, I will help you achieve it. I like the idea of coaching better than instructing.
Yeah.
If you are going to fail, I'm going to if you are determined to fail, I'm going to let you. But if you're afraid to fail, I'm going to encourage you to work around it, and I'll be happy to work with you.
Yeah.
And I would expect that, like, if I want you to tell a story, I want Steve Messenger to tell a story in Patchwork Ends one day. Maybe you just want to draw. And if that's the case, I'll write it. Maybe you want to write, but you don't feel like drawing it. Fine. You write it. I'll draw it.
Well,
together.
I feel like I might have been a little inspired last week. So Danielle, she had brought up doing some sort of horror themed stuff in the call it the 20s era, which naturally resolves a lot of issues you have with like cell phones and how do you explain this, or not having the cops or guns everywhere.
Right.
And I'm going to let a little bit of a cat out of the bag as far as story I've got, because ultimately it's probably going to change 20 times before I put anything down. The thought process being, so my brother, he had spent some time with my grandmother when she was in the nursing home. She was maybe in her last couple of years that she had, and he was making a point to spend a lot of time going out there to see her. And he had the sort of the slant of not slant sounds shady, but he wanted to dig in and understand what the hell actually happened with our grandfather.
Okay.
There was a lot of like hush hush conversations or allusions to that he had certain ties to certain activities, we'll say, that may or may not be something that someone would remember in the court of law.
Statute of limitations is what you're looking for.
Yeah. So a lot of mob related stuff. And number one, you're talking about my grandmother, who sweet lady, would never disparage anybody. And then number two, my brother, who also liked to tell tall tales. He's been known for it his whole life. God rest his soul. So, the basic idea is a mob themed horror story that involves construction.
Interesting.
And I don't want to go too far into it after that, but it just got the gears turning, and I was thinking about some of the stories that he would tell me that allegedly may or may not have happened. Well,
you got to put it down. I mean, you got to put it on paper. You need to write a first draft and then just keep attacking it. You got to do it.
But I kind of like what you're saying, though. It's like, I think the longest story you had in your book was what, 12 pages, maybe 13 pages. They were almost like 10.
No, 12 is the most. Like, I am keeping the format just because the way the book is structured. At technically 50 pages of printing, so 48 pages of comic,
right,
and then 2 pages of ads and whatnot. The way it's structured, at a 10 or 12 page story, I can write in 3 acts. And the 12 pages came from the thing that I love the most about the old EC books is also the thing I hate the most about the old EC books. EC, you're going to for the best art. I mean, those guys. I mean, Johnny Craig and Jack Cole and Al Williamson and Bernie Wrightson and like all those EC guys, just don't question it, just absorb it.
Yeah.
But the writing, they have one trick up their sleeve. We're going to load up these pages with the most dense exposition, get as much story as we can crammed into 5 pages. And then on page 6, you turn the page and oh, what a twist. He was dead all along. I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that. So I want a 3-act structure. And if I just did math, I made it clinical for myself. At 12 pages, I've got 4 pages of intro, 4 pages of conflict, and then 4 pages of resolution. If I can't tell a meaningful story in that timeline, I have failed at my job. Most of the tryout pages that Marvel and DC used to put out, they were 8-page spreads. Yep. And even then they were only kind of looking at storytelling. It was the 90s. They wanted to know if you could copy Jim Lee.
Right.
And let's be honest about that, because before that and after that, no. Now it's a very different ball game. But at the time when we were at the age to be doing that, the Marvel tryout book was, I think, an issue of X-Men Unlimited. I think it was X-Men Unlimited number 2.
I couldn't tell you.
Everybody wanted you to draw like Jim Lee.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, Jim Lee was moving books, man. Everything he touched.
I'm not dissing the guy. He was, him and Silvestri were my comic book Jesus is.
Yeah.
They made me a life to chase after and try and achieve. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited to see where this goes, man. And do you think you're going to be doing Kickstarter for the next book, or are you saving that for 3?
Broken Icon has volume 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
So we're going to get I want a consistent product across the board. The Kickstarter will be for the hardcover collection with the extra bonus stories and bonus art. All the back matter. I'm putting script pages in there, my original layouts. I want it all in there. The reason I want a consistency with the product is because if I'm going to make this a place, a brand where creators, young or old, new or veteran, I don't care, where creators can come to do the thing that they want to do and do it in a way that isn't going to cost them an arm and a leg, and they get to retain their IP. You keep your IP. Whatever you've made, it's yours. If I'm going to do that, I need brand consistency. Broken Icon is providing that for me. And then once the Kickstarter is out, I will have that and the merchandise lined up to support it. Where it goes from there, I leave up to the creators. I say, welcome to Patchwork Ends. You know, this is your sandbox. It's my sandbox, but I can't wait to see what you build in it.
Right.
You know?
Interesting, man. Well, I'm excited to see what you do with it, man. And I think the next show I'm going to see you at will be Big Lick in, was it February?
I'm excited. I've been looking at the guest list. Larry's going to be there. Fabian's going to be there. So I am excited. If you don't know, Big Lick Comic-Con is a growing and evolving thing, and it just seems to be a bigger, better party every time. There are usually 2 here in Roanoke, and then there's 1 up in Nova, Northern Virginia, for outside the state reference. I think it's usually in Chantilly.
Yep.
But the ones in Roanoke, February and August is usually how it goes.
Right.
Fun shows, man. And Roanoke's a fun town. Even if it is. Yeah, it's a fun town.
Yeah. Real quick, 2 things from Mike Hall that I missed. He said there are lots of Yakuza intertwined in the Japanese construction industry, and that seems to be a going theme with the mob. Turns out if you're laying concrete foundations, you can hide a lot of stuff.
Yeah, bones make good mortar.
God, I'm going to tell a super quick story. I had a buddy that moved into a house. He was having creepy dreams about a kid trying to get him to go down into the basement. He had to fix a wall due to water damage, and in the bricks in the wall, he was finding bones. Buck wild.
That's amazing.
He called me, and I'm like, call the cops.
No, you call him and get more details so you can write a story for Patchwork.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where I'm going with that. The other question, I'm going to turn this over to you for a quick second,
Yeah.
Matt, because I desperately need to use the restroom. I'm fine. Earlier, I was giving Matt the heads up before we were talking that dinner, the leftovers maybe should have not gone an extra day.
Now I can't see the chat over here.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, I'll give you a quick. So Mike had asked a question. He said, would you ever consider doing a military themed comic arc, either your own creation or something already established like G.I. Joe?
it's
Let me
funny you
give that to
mentioned
you, and
that.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I kind of already did, and I haven't told anyone. Broken Icon will occasionally tap me to do layouts for other books. I'm not penciling. It's just a matter of getting the book done in a timely manner. Sometimes it helps to have someone do the storytelling so the penciler can, just add the flash and the flare and kind of finish it up and get it done. So twice now I've done military-esque comics. One was kind of a Roman Legion, 300 type of scenario. But the other one, the one I just recently did, it was about 40 pages. It was, wait, was it 40? How many pages was that thing?
I think it was about 40.
It was 40-ish pages because I don't remember. It had a very old school G.I. Joe feel. If you ever read any of the really great old Larry Hama stuff, like that first and second wave, reading that script felt very much like old G.I. Joe. So I did a lot of the layouts and the storytelling in a way that I hope would make Larry proud. You're throwing yourself on the mercy of the court. If you're making a military comic and asking Larry's blessing, get ready for a no and on a long list of what's wrong. But yeah, no, I have, but it is not solicited yet. So all I can tell you is that I did the layouts for it. Now, when it comes out, I'm going to be promoting it like crazy, because it's another book with my name in it. It's very egotistical. But yeah, I'll be promoting it. Yes, I have done military comics. I did a promotional comic for Veterans Affairs. That was all the way back in like 2007 or 8 or 9. 2008 over. I'm trying to remember who I was dating that year. Well, no, it's fun because that's the only way I can tell time anymore.
Get some landmarks.
Yeah, I gotta remember who I was with. Who was at the convention asking me if this is really my job? Yeah, that's okay. So that was that year.
So this is all you do? You hang out, be a nerd, and draw stuff?
Yeah, that's it. That's all we do.
No, that's it.
There's no more thought to it than that.
Yep.
So yes, Mike, to answer your question, I've done military comics. The most recent thing was doing 40 pages of layouts for a title I can't name yet. But once it is solicited, watch me on Facebook because I'm going to be all over it.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I just did the layouts. I want to see how this thing turns out too.
That's pretty sweet.
That's the layout artist's secret affair. I am the first fanboy of the book that no one else even knows about yet. Like, I'm groupie number 1. I'm backstage, but I'm backstage of the band that I've never heard play. What?
That's pretty cool. You get a lot of the inside baseball on it. Yeah.
And I know what the stage is going to look like. I have no idea how they sound.
And then it's Lorna Shore.
I'm down with Lorna Shore. And not just because they named their band after Batman's ex-girlfriend.
That was the wildest piece of trivia. I didn't think I would.
You didn't know that?
No, you were the one who educated me on that. I knew about the band. I knew
Lorna was the only intelligent woman Bruce ever dated. She saw what was going on, decided this is insane, and left Gotham.
I mean, practical.
You know what else she did? She lived. All of Bruce's exes, they don't get far. No, she dumped him, left town. We haven't seen her in a book since. She's alive somewhere.
She's in the band Lorna Shore, self-titled.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, hey, man, we're coming up on 2 hours here. We've covered
Already?
quite. Oh yeah, I'm telling you, if
I could
you
do
and
this
I,
all day.
if you and I were just running shows, man, we could probably do this till midnight easy. Um, but
Then the
I'm
bourbon
gonna.
does come out.
What's that?
Then the bourbon does come out.
Well, I mean, it does get uploaded straight to YouTube as a challenge.
I've been behaving myself. I've had coffee all night.
I had the one. Because I feel like it is customary to have at least one drink when hanging out with Matt Slay.
Hey, and if
Um,
it's not an old fashioned, then it's just
I-
Brady's accomplice. The Brady's makes a triple rye. That is.
well, I discovered a rabbit hole recently that I'm enjoying quite a bit, and that is so I'm trying to cut out sugar wherever I can.
Uh-huh.
So instead of doing old fashions with simple syrup and that sort of thing, making cocktails with bitters.
Yeah, that's a good
And
idea.
the one I found recently that I've been digging is a spiced apple bitter, and with a little bit of bourbon, it's phenomenal.
Doesn't change too much of the flavor of anything.
Well, it depends on how much you put in there,
Well, yeah.
obviously, but
But if you do 4 dashes on a like a shot, 4 dashes to a shot, or an ounce and a half or something.
you'll get a nice, almost like an apple pie kind of feeling. It's very good.
Okay.
It's very
Well, I'll
good.
see you in February.
Maybe we'll see. I've been digging this maybe a little too much, but yeah, the spice apple bitters. If you just Amazon that, it's like the first thing that comes up. It's like a rectangular looking bottle.
It's funny. Neither one of us drinks nearly as much as this conversation would imply. But from the time I saw you at Baltimore to the time I saw you last at Big Lake, I think we both lost 50 pounds.
I mean, I did go through a phase where I pretty much quit drinking for 2 months, and it would have been in between. I was doing maybe 2 or 3 cocktails a night. Now they weren't super heavy pours, but still.
Yeah. I mean, it's the sugar that adds up,
Yeah.
not the alcohol. So.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it cutting that out for a couple months and then just trying to be a little bit more sane about it. Definitely helped.
Yeah,
But is there any other things? I got a few links from Matt down in the description of the chat. I'm going to hang out for a little bit and just give you guys a recap from the Cincinnati show and a couple other things. Typically, what I've done in the past is had other people jump on and have like panel discussions and that sort of thing. But I'm being frank, I'm whooped. So I'm going to do a quick recap and that sort of thing. But Matt, is there anything else that you want to plug before you take off tonight?
I am living and breathing Patchwork Ends Volume 2. So if you haven't gotten Volume 1 yet, please jump on the link. Please grab it. It is a labor of love, but it also has a lot of meaning to me. And if you ever have questions about it, I want you to ask. I don't believe in burying the lead. I don't believe in, here's the secret to comics. No, I want you to hit me up with any questions. Even if you read it and you absolutely hate it, if you despise it, definitely tell me about that too, because I have reasons for everything I've done in here. As far as what I've got going in the works now, again, it's unsolicited stuff that I'm not allowed to mention, except that, once it is solicited and once it's ready, I'll be all over Facebook promoting it, blabbing about it, talking about it. So,
well, we'll definitely have to have you on here too to talk about whatever you can talk about.
yes.
But part of for the folks that are tuning in that came specifically to see Matt and that sort of thing is trying to draw a collective community here. There's a lot of cross interest in that sort of thing that if you dig Matt's stuff, you might dig my stuff. You might dig some of the other artists that we've had on here, like James or Danielle. So please consider giving the channel a subscribe, and we'll definitely have Matt back on in the future, and maybe part of one of the panel discussions where we can talk about some of the different topics that are coming up.
Absolutely.
So,
and I would encourage everybody listening, go back and watch Danielle's video. There's a lot of experience there that you're going to be able to relate with as a creator. And I love the idea that her sort of almost Disney whimsy romantic, putting that aesthetic towards horror and thriller and crime stories, I want her to do anything she wants. I can't wait to see whatever it is.
Oh yeah,
Excited to see it. So go back and watch Danielle's video too.
absolutely. All right, Matt. Well, hey, thanks for hanging out, man. I'll get with you here in the near future. We'll talk about it next time. All right.
Absolutely, anytime. Thank you, brother.
All right, brother. Take care. All right, guys, you're stuck with me now. I'm going to do a quick recap, like I said, simply because it has been a long week. I haven't fully adjusted to the daylight change and all that good stuff. So I'm going to bring up a couple things here real quick, but guys, please give Matt a follow. He's a really good dude. Like I said, I met him a few years ago, and I was a bit taken aback because I met his wife AJ first. She had come to the booth and got to know her, and she was getting commissions done and a lot of dinosaur related stuff back then. I was doing more like Jurassic Park stuff. I thought that might be my angle because not a lot of people draw dinosaurs, but that's because they're a pain to draw. Let's see here. Make sure I'm clicking on the right things, trying to get to my page. There we go. But yeah, she introduced me to Matt, and I was just blown away with his art. Really great stuff. And he has been, it's almost problematic because there's so many times that we get to talking before a show starts. And the next thing you know, they're like 5 minutes till the doors open. And we're like, neither of us have set up anything. We've just been talking the whole time. So it's been really good to catch up with Matt, see what he's got going on. He's a really good dude. So please give him a follow. I want to bring up real quick my experience at Cincinnati. Everyone else was at New York Comic Con. I got to go to Cincinnati. That's one of my favorite shows of the year. He does not have Instagram. He does not have Instagram. If you look up Matt Slay, you get like 3 other Matt Slays. And if you look up Steve Messenger on Instagram, there's also a dude that paints pictures of horses. He's really good at it. He's really good. But I don't paint horses. But yeah, Facebook, give him a follow. Or I'm sure we'll be talking. I'm sure we'll end up getting him on here again here soon. Love to get him on like a panel discussion. We'll talk about that here in a quick minute. But real quick, highlight of the weekend, of course, was getting to meet the one and only Kevin Eastman, one of the creators of the Ninja Turtles franchise. He was there. Just a quick introduction to Cincinnati, I guess, before this. They had to move to a smaller venue. Cincinnati downtown at Duke Energy Convention Center's under renovation. So I was very skeptical about this show. Smaller venue, fraction of the vendors and artists, but this is my personal best from financial and then also just feel good that I've ever had at Cincinnati. The one thing I'm missing, though, is that Cincinnati is known for doing the sketch duels where they'll have several artists up in a panel and we all have to draw something that y'all in the audience suggest. And we have to draw it while we answer questions from the audience. I got asked no more than probably about a dozen times, or I should say no less than a dozen times, if we were doing sketch duels this year. Part of the problem was I don't think they had enough available extra rooms for panels because they were already doing stuff with the celebrities. And then the second bit was the gal that puts it on, Chris. She was actually at New York Comic Con that weekend because she works with an artist rep business. So all that to say, I was at the booth all weekend. Friday foot traffic was pretty solid. I ended up, Friday numbers were on par with what I would do downtown. So even though it was a much smaller venue, did just as good Friday. Saturday, blew it out of the park. There was a couple times I had to look at the numbers in like double count and be like, holy crap, we're actually doing super good. And then Sunday rolled around and the foot traffic was slower. Still had a great Sunday. So definitely signing up again for next year. The one thing that is a bit irritating from a vendor perspective is that they don't send out an email to re-up for the next year. You have to wait for the email to come out. So I don't know when that's coming out. They said just keep an eye. But I don't know if that's coming out in a week, 2 weeks, months, but I am definitely getting back on for next year. It was that good. It was a little weird having a lot of buddies that were at New York instead, but still had a great time. And honestly, kind of surprising that Kevin Eastman was at Cincy instead of New York. You would think that he'd be there, but really awesome. He was the big draw, no pun intended, for this show. And I had this original piece that we're both holding here up on display. And I told myself, if nobody gets this or buys this to get it signed, I'm gonna get it signed. So Sunday morning, it turns out they sent out an email that they're gonna have a special session for just vendors and artists to get autographs, so we don't have to deal. The dude had a line. You weren't gonna get through that line in any less than 3 hours. I only had to wait maybe 40 minutes, and it was before the show really started. And not just him, but his whole staff was blown away by it. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I don't like doing this, but like everybody there was loving it. And he gave me a lot of props, which was huge. And I told him, I said, dude, I don't have like a boss that I report to. I haven't had a boss in years. I feel like I just got an attaboy from the boss. So that was super feel good. The other things from the weekend, I'm just going to move this over here because I don't want to show anything. Not that anything's that spicy. Had the double booth for the weekend too. So super wide. I couldn't get a corner booth. They were already sold out because they were that limited. But the double booth, I'm really digging it. I do that at Baltimore too. But that was really cool. Also, it had some blue lights to the top. I don't know how much it helped, but everyone was telling me that they could see me from across the hall. So that was the right move. I'm also upgrading. One of the things I didn't like about this, and I've got a couple more shows where I've got double booths like this, is I don't like having exposed booth to my neighbors. The quilt folks next to me, Jason, I believe his name was, and his wife, they make these really awesome quilts. I just didn't like that you could see the backs of the quilts. So I want to have walls on either side. So it's kind of boxed in. So some people get drunk and they buy stupid stuff. I had a few cocktails last night and ordered a giant backdrop. Now I still have to print all the reels that will go on it. Some of these will stay, but I'm going to get some new ones. So that's coming up. But all in all, Cincinnati was a great time. Got to go to my favorite brewery in Ohio. Actually, it might be favorite brewery, period, which was Saunders Brewing. Let's see. Sold these the first day. Set of 4 Ninja Turtles sketch covers. Those all went. And then also sold out of skateboards. That was really good. I was trying to move this Peter Weller RoboCop. Nobody bothered. Nobody even bothered. Couldn't be bothered. But yeah, other than that, great show. Also got to see some cool collectibles. This dude, I think his name was Joe. Sorry, dude. It's been a minute. So this is one of his things. He makes these custom guitars and goes around and gets them signed. That's the wrong button. Pushing all the wrong buttons. But he gets them signed. Apparently he's done it before where he's gotten like the voice actors to sign them. This time, of course, he went and got Kevin Eastman to sign it. Check this out. Those are my sound effects. Totally sweet. Eastman loved it. They put it up on their Facebook page. Very cool. And then, okay, I'll show this. Apparently the voice actor for Peter Pan was there. And there's this gal that wanted to get Peter Pan to sign their Tinkerbell that they bought. So Faith, Trust, and Pixie Dust, or Bust, rather. There you go. And then this one was really cool. We'll end on this one as far as the Cincinnati recap stuff. There's a little bit of a battle for the last skateboard. These guys swooped in at the last second, sniped it, got it. And very cool to see Eastman's signature next to mine. Like, I don't know. I don't need my ego stroked. I'm very blue collar at heart. It's just get in and do the work. And this is really cool. especially having Splinter on there. Really dig it. Let me make sure there's no other photos to show there. There's some other cool memorabilia. This apparently was like a super limited run. I don't know if this is Toys R Us or whoever. They were going to do these like evolution of the turtles over the years. Apparently, they only made the Leonardo set of the action figures. Apparently, it didn't sell that well, so they canned it. And this was apparently a super limited set that they made. So that's pretty cool. And then there's the back of it. It's got the artwork that goes with it. I think that is it. Other than that, folks, last couple plugs. If you haven't picked up your copy of the Moppets over on Kickstarter, this is my cover for this book. This is from Kyle Adams. So if you just look up the Moppets on Kickstarter, I really like this cover. I actually had sent a few other thumbnails, but as soon as I sketched this one out, I'm like, I actually really want to do this one. And it's the Swedish chef in the M&M classic poster where he's holding the chainsaw like Jason. And I got all of Gonzo's chickens down there. For $25, you can pick that up. Head on over to Kickstarter. Consider backing another entrepreneur in the comic business. I think this thing's going to blow up over time. He just doesn't have the base established. I think once he gets this thing going, this thing's going to be huge. If you also haven't seen it, there's a couple other cool Kickstarters going on. There's a Trick or Treat one that's going on that it looks like they're very close to hitting their $90,000 goal within like a day or two of starting. So that's super cool. Echoes. That's a Michael Turner tribute book that's coming out. That's got less than a day to go. Jump on that. And then Coffin Comics, of course, they've got their book out. Definitely jump on that. Next week, we're going to do things a little different. What's up, Flower? What's happening? And I'm assuming the is for the High Handsome. It's good to see y'all at the show last weekend. I'm in Memphis this weekend. I kind of didn't know if I was doing this show. So Friday, I need to get up super early and drive to Memphis. I thought Memphis was like 7 or 8 hours. It's 10. So I'll be driving down to Memphis. I have a 2-day show. I'll let you all know how it goes next week. I'm hoping it goes really for 10 hours. I'm gonna have to get pretty much an extra hotel each way, because I can make the drive down to set up. But I'm gonna need a hotel Sunday night, because I was doing the math with the time change. Even if I got on the road by 6. That means I'm not getting home till 5 in the morning. I've done that once in my life, and it's dangerous. Not doing that again. It's a lot of Monster. It's a lot of coffee. It's just a problem. So, hoping it's a really good show. But then I've got a weekend off. But next Wednesday, I'm looking to do. We talked about it last week. A discussion around AI. There was a post that came up on Facebook today. I won't say who, but there's a comic book publisher that posted something. He likes to call out other publishers that use AI art. He likes to call them out because he's one of the publishers that has made a firm stance. We're not using AI. We're using real artists. We're not taking shortcuts. That's what this industry is about. So when he sees AI, he calls it out. All that to say, someone made a comment in his thread that said, who's winning this fight and what are the artists doing to fight back? And I don't have a good answer for you. Unfortunately, I feel like the cards are stacked against us in a number of ways. And we'll elaborate on that next week. But I want to have a panel discussion. I know like James, Danielle, even Matt, they've all expressed interest in coming back and having these kind of discussions. So hopefully we can get a few people on here, maybe 3 or 4 tops, and I'll kind of guide the conversation. I was really trying to find the slide deck because there's an actual committee that our government has that's tasked with spearheading the direction of how we're implementing AI in the US. And it's interesting. It's a bit dystopian at the same time. Um, I think it's the ball and cup game. I think there's other things going on. I'm always kind of looking 2 steps ahead, right? Like why are we doing this? Why are we investing in this? And if you look at folks like, and I'm not going to argue whether or not he's right or wrong about anything, but I've heard Joe Rogan's take on AI, which I don't agree with. He seems to think that if you can get that, what Elon Musk has with the, whatever they call it, the brain chip, Neuralink, I think is what it's called. If you could get that with AI, you become a god. I just don't think that's true. Number one, I don't like the idea of Neuralink. You don't need to cut out part of my skull to put a chip in it. Thanks. I'm good. If I die old and dumb, or even young and dumb, I'll take it. But I don't think putting general AI into any equation puts it on God tier status. Maybe the government has, and they probably do, much better versions of what we're using. But I just don't think it is the end all be all. I mean, I want to say that IBM had reported financial losses in the stock market, and they said that it's because they hadn't fully realized the potential of AI. It's like, okay, what are we doing here? So next week, I want to talk a bit about some of the stuff that I have found, and I'll give you a little bit of a teaser here. While I'm pulling this over here. Oh, it's for the Moppets. Yep. Yeah, it's a parody book. Definitely like a parody cover driven book. And I'm doing good. I actually I was telling everybody earlier, Flower, that apparently I shouldn't have had the leftovers for dinner. They made me a bit sick. Luckily not like sick, but sick to my stomach. So I told Matt coming into this, I'm like, we might make it an hour and I might have to call it. That's how bad it was. But we're almost there. For those of you that are hanging out, thank you for hanging out. And it's honestly, for the most part, AI for the most part doesn't bother me just because it's, I guess, what am I going to do about it? It's here. It's here. We're here. Deal with it. To quote, what's his name? Cheadle from Iron Man 2. But here's some of the things that are going on behind the scenes. So if you click through some of the actual government websites, they actually have they have to make certain things public. And there is a public use case inventory as to things that they're using AI for. And if you scroll through, number one, the formatting is terrible. It's just kind of run-on sentences, some paragraph structure. But if I just drag my mouse down, this thing goes on forever. But the very first one is interesting enough. This is for Customs and Border Protection. Is that they are coming up with AI curated synthetic data that creates synthetic data for computer vision to enable more capable and ethical AI when detecting anomalies in complex environments. Okay, that's a freaking mouthful. What's that mean? Specifically, it says it creates an emulated X-ray sensor that can produce visually realistic synthetic X-ray scan images similar to real X-ray scan images and virtual 3D assets of vehicles and narcotics containers. These images will be used to enhance the development of anomaly detection algorithms for non-intrusive inspection, incorporating AI machine learning for the detection of narcotics and other contraband and conveyances and cargo. What does that all mean? Well, they're talking about different sensor kits that they can get to covertly detect and track illicit cross-border traffic in remote locations. So I suppose if you train your system and your sensors on things that typically indicate a positive hit, and you create this database of images and you can make 3D models out of it, um, you aren't getting a real X-ray sensor. You're getting a predicted X-ray sensor. And I think that is the core problem with AI, is that it's not thinking, it is predicting on what it's already seen, which is a lot of what we do, right? So in a way, it is artificial intelligence, but it's only as good as the data that we're feeding it. Which I think just in this one example, like if we already have problems with police officers, and I'm speaking generally here, right? If we already have problems with specific situations where police officers are profiling vehicles, people, that sort of thing, and then we feed a ton of that data into a program, then you don't really need to say, well, the drug dog got a positive hit. You need to say, our AI detection system got a positive hit on your vehicle. We need to inspect your vehicle. Now, I'm extrapolating quite a bit, but I feel like the majority, set aside generative AI, set aside comic books, and talk about big picture, what the end game is with this to make these databases. I feel like the bigger picture things have less to do with us having an easier life and more to do with control and bypassing policies and procedures. Um, and I don't know how they can get away with it because, for instance, like even on an iPad, if you pinch and zoom to make a video bigger or a photo bigger, it uses algorithmic data to predict what those pixels should look like. So if somebody is holding a cell phone, it's possible that if you pinch and zoom in on that image and it expands pixels certain ways, it might look like I'm holding something else, like a gun. So already, like in courts, there's been precedent set, to my knowledge, that using things that are based on algorithms as far as enlarging photos and enhancing photos using AI programs isn't necessarily admissible to court. Evidence has actually been thrown out or dismissed because it was enhanced by AI. Turns out that thing that they do in NCIS where they're like enhance, enhance, zoom in, enhance, zoom in. And you can see the guy's like passport that he's holding in a crowded photo. Turns out that number one, we don't have that technology that we know of. But number two, if it's using an algorithm and AI, it seems as though that there's been cases that have actually been dismissed. Not cases, but pieces of evidence, because it's predicting what it should be. It's not what it's actually is there. If you have a normal image and then an enhanced image, you're not looking at the original image anymore. You're looking at a computer's interpretation. So that is just one take on, like I said, there's a ton of data here. I'm not going to read all this. There's enough other interesting things to talk about. But next week, I want to get some folks in on the panel discussion to talk about it. James, it's all good, man. Good to see you here. Putting a chest together. Like, are we talking IKEA? Are we talking, I don't know what we're talking. But yeah, man, if you want to jump on next week, we'll talk about some of that stuff, Danielle. Same thing goes. And then I'll hit up Matt if he wants to jump into. Be interesting to have a conversation just about some of the things that are going on. Outside of that, friends, I think the only thing that I have to bring up, let's make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Dresser. I'm going to have a super busy November. Like super busy. I just wrapped up Slaughterdell's 2's Kickstarter about a month ago, and we finally get the proofs in. The books are supposed to be showing up, I believe, next week and the next week. I've never seen so much money in my own bank account go. So between the Kickstarter money coming in, having an amazing show in Cincinnati, and then paying for not only all the books, my booth upgrade that I just did, where I'm getting the bigger backdrop display. I also signed up for a show where I'm paying for a premium booth next year. And when I say premium, it's going to put me at the very front of the show in DC at AwesomeCon. Yeah, money's been all over the place. So what I'm asking is that November 23rd is my Make Up the Difference date. So whatever I don't come through on shows over the next few shows, November 23rd is my live sale with Clan McDonald Comics. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you're going to hear me talking about going on here. I have a ton of stuff that I'm going to be selling. I'm going to have some exclusive stuff and some premiere stuff that I'm going to have available at shows, but it's going to be your first opportunity to jump on it. And if we sell out, then the next few shows, I'm not going to have it. So the next show's coming up. This weekend is Memphis. It's a 2-day show. Curious to see how it goes. I had a mutual friend of a bunch of other people that had posted about it several months back, and I was like, you know what? Open weekend. Let's go do some work. Mainly because I was concerned how Cincinnati was going to go. Turns out I didn't have to be that concerned. It's a very good show. Next weekend is off. So this weekend, Memphis. Next weekend is off. And then I've got, I can't remember if it's Grand Rapids first or Motor City, but both Michigan shows. And then November 23rd is Clan McDonald Comics in Chicago. So Grand Rapids should be a solid straight down the middle show. Motor City, I'm hoping, is good. I lost my spot. I had a really good spot in Artist Alley. I had 2 booths. It's phenomenal. I missed Motor City does too. They do the May show and they do the November show. And I missed the one in May. It was my sister's wedding. Of course I wasn't going to miss that. But as soon as you miss one show, you're no longer in the rotation. And luckily I'd laid the groundwork with them. They knew that was going on. They couldn't get me the same spot back, which is unfortunate. I'm going into an exhibitor booth, which I historically haven't done as well with exhibitor booths there. But I'm hoping with these new guys, I can go up to 17 feet tall with these new ones. Currently, I can get up to like 12 feet tall with my banners and go 5 feet higher. I think I actually have to look at what the fire code says to make sure that I'm not going to cause an issue. Yeah. So yeah, it is exciting times. The money's moving all over the place. It is exhausting, and I don't have the stresses that I used to at the company I was with previously, where you're worried about your team, you're worried about your employment, you're worried about your customers, you're worried about all this stuff. Now it's just like, I had an amazing sale, that money's gone. I had the best show of my life, that money's gone. But it's being reinvested. And it's not like I'm not eating. I'm clearly eating fine. I'm also drinking. Some of these were a gift, but I did also buy another case of Liquid Death. This is an apple cider one. It's amazing. It's very good. So it's not like I am. Thank you. It's not like I'm not doing well. It's just my very first year was very low overhead. I was pretty much just selling prints, and then cost of booth, cost of travel. Had a really good year. Second year, I started upgrading to exhibitor booths. So I had more overhead, all that good stuff. And going into the third year, I was buying even better booths and even better shows and that sort of thing. So coming into this year, I was like, I knew that I wasn't going to be crushing it, profit wise and money in my pocket wise, because I knew I was reinvesting quite a bit. And as this year was going on, well, number one, I started off the year with my van blowing up in Minneapolis. So buying a new van wasn't great, but retrospective, being grateful for the situation that I'm in. Not many people can just buy a new van. Now, granted, used, new to me. Not many people can just do that. So, very blessed to be the situation that I'm in. Very thankful for all you guys supporting me. At the same time, looking at next year and looking at investments going into that, it's like, I think I'm going to have one more year of really sinking a lot of money into this so I can have a good foothold. Because seeing the amount of success I had by having those double boosts and going tall, I think it's already too late for next year. Next year, my boosts are for the most part already booked. But I think the following year, I think I'm going all double boosts, which is weird to say out loud because I didn't think I was going to do that anytime soon. I was pretty happy with just doing 10 by 10. I think I might go all double booth or start doing more of them, which means my profit margin takes a hit now, or I should say next year, my profit margin will take a hit. But going into the next year, I should start reaping the benefits of that. So it's like I'm somewhere, I'm no longer crawling and I'm walking, but this is turning more into a run. And the one thing that kind of came to mind, there was a company I was following, kind of their Instagram and their Facebook and all that stuff and their YouTubes, that they have grown leaps and bounds, call it since COVID. They kind of found a way to thrive through COVID, and they've been growing and they've been expanding, and they're talking about different business ventures. And they just had a come to Jesus moment literally this week. So I'm considering it a cautionary tale. They said that they're having personnel and staffing issues. And the guy that's running it, the CEO, is also one of their biggest like spokespeople and that sort of thing. He's all over the place. And he's considering pulling the plug on everything just because they grew too quick. And while I don't feel like I'm growing too quickly, I look back and think I'm in about the same time frame that he's in. And if I don't do this smart, I'm going to get burnt out when things start to fall through. So let's put it this way. Awesome Cons is going to be my most expensive booth next year. And it's not even a double booth. It's a single booth. It's corner. It's in the premium spot. But I'm spending around $2,000 just for that booth. That's the most I've ever spent on a booth. Now, granted, I just bought a double booth for Cincinnati that I did not plan on doing. I think that ended up running me around $1,200 and ended up being profit margin even my best show at Cincinnati. So there's part of me that thinks I might be limiting what I can do with a 10 by 10. I might need to start moving to that double booth. Just kind of makes me sick of my stomach to think of, because that means all next year, most of my profit from the shows, unless I can find a way to bump up what I'm currently hitting, most of my profit margin is going to be dumped into doing that double booth. So we'll see. Maybe I'll just do a few, but there's also part of me that's like, if it works, why wait? Well, money is a thing. Money is a thing. So the big thing is that I technically already have the product. And I'm going to have even more product by that time. to answer your question here. So I just placed a giant order for comic books. And right now, my comic books already take about 3.5 feet of table. I could probably double that rack with the amount of books that I've got coming in now. And in my mind, I'm like, well, that's 6 feet of space. That's an entire table on a 10 by 10. Because if you think about it, one table is going to be 10 feet because it includes 2 feet from the other table, and then 8 feet for the 8-foot table. So you got a 2-foot corner spot, 2 foot squared. So 6 feet, one whole table is going to be comic books. Not to mention prints. I feel like I am handcuffing myself right now with a 10 by 10. If I do more print bundles where people don't have to think, they can just say, give me that bundle, give me this bundle. Things move a lot faster. So I think in my neck of the woods with what I'm doing, I think I can run a lot faster with a double booth. And I'm really going to push the limits at Grand Rapids. Like I said, I got a double booth for that one. I think I'm going to try it because I can do a pretty minimal investment to test pilot it and see if it works. The only problem is if it works, it's going to work great. If it doesn't work and I pay for 2 booths and I'm not getting my money's worth out of it, it hurts even more. So that's sort of the gamble. But then I look at some of these other guys and I know how much they make. And I'm like, I don't need to make as much as they do. I won't even name names, but I know some of these guys that are running double boosts that are just crushing. And I think I could maximize it. But Ben says, I feel that expensive booth with my bill I paid for Mega. Yes, absolutely. Ben could stick around. Ben's all right. Ben's all right. So yeah, I don't know. That's the risk reward. And the only safety net I have to fall back on is number one, myself, and 2, the money I've saved. So we'll see. I think this Grand Rapids show, so it'll be interesting. When I come back from Grand Rapids, we'll have to have a show and do a recap and let you know how it goes. Because I'm hoping, I think I might have all the comic books in by then. I can't remember if Grand Rapids is the 9th or the week after. I think it's the week after. I think it's the week of like the 15th, 16th, something like that. It won't cost much more for me to get another comic book rack, and it won't cost much more to do up the prints the way that I want to. And if it works, then I think next year is going to be get ready for 26. Because next year will be get everything absolutely ready to go. And then 26 is going to be the how I maintain moving forward. And if that works, if that's sustainable, if that's something that's bringing in enough money, then potentially that is bring in business partner, someone that can run the booth, that sort of thing. Because once you start talking double booths with some of these shows, especially if they're super busy, that's too much for one person. I didn't have too much of a problem with that at Cincinnati, just because foot traffic. But I think if I go with the layout that I want to do, where I have more print bundles that are ready to go, I don't. It's going to be a lot for just me to handle. So we'll see. We'll see. Awesome. Perfect. Appreciate the clarification, Ben. I was thinking that's what it was. It's funny. I ran into another artist that was at Cincy. Cincy? Maybe it was somewhere else. I think that's Richmond, actually. They thought they were the same weekend, and they were bummed. But yeah. Detroit, then Grand Rapids. All right. I feel that for me, So remembering my timeline is not like everyone else's, but also when do I take a big leap at said thing? But you putting yourself out there is a big leap in the first place. Absolutely. That's what I tell most people. There's a lot of people that come to the booth that say that they wish that they could do this or wish that they could do that. Say, well, I get told all the time by people that I wish I could do what you did, and I didn't do it overnight. That was probably one of my most liked posts that I put up recently. Was I put up the picture of the original booth? Shouldn't say the original, the one that I was running with for the last couple of years before I went full time. The barrier to entry is actually really low. It's like super low. Um, and I get interesting looks and reactions when I say it, but there's so many people that will ask me at conventions that are like, so how do you get into this? How do you get a booth? I said, do you have money? Yeah. Can you buy stuff on Amazon? It's about the same process. What do you want? How many? How much? Put in your details. Swipe. To do all the other stuff like make the product, get the product, market the product, all that good stuff. There's a science to that, but there's an art to that too. So, all that to say, friends. Oh, we're always still learning, Daniel. I think my first few shows that I did, I was taking notes at the show and then even when the show was done about what I wanted to do different, what I wanted to change, what I could do better. And then the first year, especially the first few months that I went full time, it was like every weekend I remember sitting up on my deck and I'd have a glass of bourbon, a cigar, and my laptop. And I had an action item list of what I needed to do like as soon as possible. What I needed to do within the next month or two, what I needed to do within the next 6 months. And it was just always this self-critique of what can I do better. And I'm thankful I got some really good advice early on from some people. Um, some of it unsolicited, but as far as marketing goes and that sort of thing. But as a game changer, I almost doubled how much money I was making because I got some really good advice about bundling and making sets of prints, that sort of thing. At this point, it's like I know what my weak spots are. I know what I've been copping out on. I still feel like I'm scotch taping my booth together sometimes. Um, I want it to be undeniable when you come to my booth that this is one of the most professional artists that's here. Am I the best artist? That's subjective. Most professional, also subjective. But undeniable that I've got my act together and it's clear that I'm doing things right. Do I have a big booth? Do I have lots of stuff? Yes. I want it to look like a Tony Santiago's booth, like a Terry Huddleston booth. Hell, even Ben, like your booth, dude. Like even when you were doing the laser cutting with the wood, you had a very clean, organized, fantastic looking setup. I'm sure your stuff's going to evolve over the next couple years, hell, the next couple months. But like you've got a system down. James Sketching the Beast says I got to figure out how to print those big banners you got. That way I don't got to keep fixing my stuff for the print wall. If you need help, dude, reach out to me. I've got the printer that does it. It's like right there. I ran out of paper. I'm halfway through a Ninja Turtles print. That's actually canvas. The file's going to be huge. So you figure 11 by 17 print in high res is around 5 megs. And once you put, you'll probably need like a 10-foot banner. Because even if you have like a 12-foot riser, you need 10 feet. 8 times 3, 24, 24 times 5. So it's going to be like probably around 120 20 to 150 megabyte file, depending on how complicated your file is. But I can help you get it printed, cost of materials and shipping. It's all you. I helped out another artist like that. Or you can go to like Vistaprint. I was using Vistaprint for a while, and they're going to charge a lot more. Now, granted, they can get it printed on vinyl, which will hold up, but thing. Flower, everybody needs a lift every now and then. Everybody needs a lift. All right. Well, I was going to call it. Any last minute questions before we call it? We've been at almost 3 hours. Any other? You got it, dude. Yeah, I had a friend, she was considering getting a printer, or at least just sourcing larger canvas prints. And I was just like, send me the files. We'll get you. I've got another buddy who's a photographer. He wanted to do some ultra wide prints. So that printer that I'm using will do 24 inches by whatever. So we were doing panoramics of like probably 10 inch by 24 inch, like really cool panoramic photos. But I forget what the cost is. I can break it down. For a 100-foot roll of canvas, it's like $120. So call it $1.20 a foot plus the ink. Call it a couple dollars a foot. $3 a foot plus shipping. So if you wanted to do 8-foot banner, I could do it for $24. And then if you're doing for like a 6-foot artist alley, you'll need 3 of those. So call it $75 plus shipping. Sounds about right. Let me double check those numbers before I commit to it on the internet where everyone can see it. But that's the thing. So we got to help each other out, try out things, see what works. And that printer is a workhorse. So I knock on wood, haven't had any issues with it. But I've got one more day in Ohio. I got a lot to do tomorrow. I got to hit I'm actually like really concerned to look at my text message right now. Okay, one more story before we call it. So I was requested to do a commission at the con, and the guy's been hyped about it this whole time. And I sent him the final picture today, and he anytime someone doesn't get back to me right away, I assume the worst. I assume that means that they hate it. He texted me while the show was going on. So I sent him the finished product around 11 this morning and didn't get a text back until about an hour ago. So I'm hoping he likes it. I hope he's like, oh, sorry, I was so busy. My dog yacked on the carpet. Well, maybe not that. He was busy is what I'm trying to say. And now he's saying how much he loves it. So do we want to live? I'll take a peek. I'll take a peek and let you know if it's good or bad. We did good. You guys want to see it? You want to see it? I normally, when it comes to sketch covers, I usually only put one character on a cover just so I can get all the detail and all that stuff. And I was concerned because anytime someone gives me a lot of detail for a commission, I feel like they already have the picture in their head of what they want. And if I don't capture that image, they're not going to like it. And I definitely upcharged for this because he wanted 2 figures. He wanted Ahsoka from Star Wars and Mary Jane. And 2 of his favorite characters. He wanted them kind of pinup style. So you are about to see some pinups. Awesome. So yeah, are you streaming on here, Twitch? Where are you streaming at, Daniel? So anytime and plus he wanted it colored. And I'm used to just doing black and white for sketch covers. So this is, take it out of the sleeve so you can actually see it without a glare. It took me a lot longer than it normally does, but that is the cover. We got Mary Jane holding the dark saber, and we got Ahsoka. Took me a minute, but it was worth it. Over on Twitch. So glad he likes it. I've got to get this and a bunch of other stuff in the mail tomorrow. And then pack up and head on over to, I think I'm getting the Slaughter Dolls t-shirts tomorrow too. Yes, he specifically cited that he liked Jay Scott's version of Mary Jane. So I was trying to capture a little bit more of that with my style. And then the pose, he wanted Ahsoka to be wearing, where is she? Mary Jane's outfit and kind of role swap a bit. So I emulated the infamous Spider-Man Mary Jane J. Scott Campbell pose where legs are all wonky, but it actually kind of works. So very happy with how that turned out. Yeah, Danielle, go and put your Twitch stream handle up. You're at, and I'll keep running until you get that on there. I'm also sending to Gus Mock, if you know him. He's a good dude. He did a cover for me for Slaughter Dolls 1. He ordered a handful of Dark Side blank sketch covers. Why? Number one, because Gus is a good dude. Number two, because he wants to do some killer Star Wars art on them. And number three, it's for the live sale that he's doing with Clan McDonald Comics in a few weeks. So definitely check out Clan McDonald Comics. A bunch of Scottish dudes out of Chicago. They'll be selling those on there. Yeah. Daniel, go ahead and put your if you guys have Twitch streams, if you've got Twitch handles, go ahead and put your ats on there in the chat so you guys can follow each other. And then I will support over there as well. My Twitch channel is non-existent. I thought I was going to be a Twitch guy. I do Twitch from time to time. And then, yeah, I also had a really big order of Slaughter Dolls stuff from the main website. So that was cool. All right. So give James a follow at Sketching the Beast. Is that on Twitch? Might want to put on if it's Twitch or if it's YouTube. Share those. Share them. Twitch. Yes. I'm assuming that means Twitch. Danielle, share your Twitch too. And Flower, if you got a Twitch, you can put it on up. Okay. All right. I'm super tired. I think the chat stays open for a minute. You guys feel free to share those. I have enjoyed our talk this evening. Enjoyed getting to catch up with Matt for a couple hours. I did not plan on going this long. And then you got it. Guys, thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.